Qin Daniu's eyes widened and his mouth slightly opened. In their place, becoming a disciple is a very sacred thing. He was so simple that he was shocked by the trick proposed by Li Zhoguang. If someone else said this, he would definitely shout angrily, "How dare you insult my master!" Then he would hit him with a top corner mountain piercing move. But facing Li Zhoguang, who has always taken care of him, he could only say, "I'll ask my master when I go back." Qin Daniu thought to himself that he was now the most talented disciple in the Manyu martial arts school, and he was also the master's last disciple. Even if the master took action, he should not beat him to death. Shouldn't he? Seeing that Qin Daniu agreed, Li Zhoguang turned around and asked Xiong Fasai, "By the way, brother Fasai, I almost forgot, do you have any basic cultivation techniques for the demon race? I'll give them to Huang Shiren to try." Xiong Fasai, who was dozing off by the wall, heard this and opened his eyes. "Huang Shiren." Li Zhoguang pointed to his shoulder, "It's this little guy." Huang Shiren stood up tall and straightened his chest in cooperation. Xiong Fasai nodded, "Good name, good meaning. But no, I checked it when I met it before. It is not a demon now, but a beast that is transforming into a demon. You don't need to try to know that he can't practice the skills we have. The acquired demons in our place have long been extinct, so there are no skills designed for acquired demons. But after it is transformed, I can find a few sets to try on it." Hearing Xiong Fasai's words, Huang Shiren seemed a little frustrated and huddled on Li Zhoguang's shoulder. Li Zhoguang suddenly noticed that Huang Shiren could understand Xiong Fasai's words. Could it be because it was also recognized as a passenger by the train and provided with a translation function, but it was not strengthened when it completed the task last time? Forget it, let's see after completing the task this time. After thanking Xiong Fasai, Li Zhoguang sat on the ground to rest. As time went by, candidates arrived at the exit one after another. Everyone glared at Li Zhoguang, who was sitting at the exit to rest. The candidates who could reach the exit now were the ones who had been in the vanguard. Of course, they recognized the madman who carried the examiner and ran away after a disagreement. Although Li Zhoguang's behavior was hated, it also reflected his strength from the side, so even if the candidates disliked him, no one stood up to show that they wanted to teach him a lesson. Not long after, another piercing ring sounded. It was Sats's alarm clock ringing. He signaled the candidates to walk out of the passage. As the last candidate walked out of the passage, a thick rolling door slowly fell down, closing the passage. The few candidates who had just run to the exit could only watch the rolling door fall and were eliminated before the finish line. At this time, everyone looked at the environment outside the passage, which looked like a plain. Looking far away, they could not see clearly because the entire plain was covered with thick fog. Sats introduced to the candidates, "This is the Shimala wetland, also known as the lair of fraudsters. In the Shimala wetland, there are many creatures with special abilities, which will use various means to deceive and prey on humans. So follow me closely on the next journey, and don't be fooled." As Sats said this, someone jumped out from the side, "He is fake." Before he finished speaking, Li Zhoguang appeared behind him, waved his palm and cut off his cervical vertebrae and the cervical vertebrae of the monkey on his back. Li Zhoguang clapped his hands and said to Sats, "The things that are in the way have been cleared, let's get on the road quickly, lunch time is almost here, and I am a little hungry." When the other candidates heard that it was Li Zhoguang who was talking, they spontaneously surrounded Sats. There was only one way in the passage just now, and the examiner could run along the passage even if he was kidnapped. This is such a large plain, and it is filled with thick fog. If the examiner is taken away by Li Zhoguang again, they will really lose their way. So they made up their minds to surround the examiner this time and not give Li Zhoguang a chance to attack. Li Zhoguang shrugged his shoulders, and it was okay. He thought that if he carried Sats again, Sats would probably hit him before the examinee could make a move. There was no ripple on the last journey. After being messed up by Li Zhoguang several times, Hisoka was no longer interested in playing the examiner game. In order to guard against Li Zhoguang, the other examinees did not consider the problem of physical consumption, and tightly surrounded Sats and acted with Sats. As an old hand who knows the ability of mind, Sats thought that the Shimala wetland was like his back garden. He could avoid many unnecessary troubles by just using condensation to sense the breath of life. Those examinees who followed him closely also hit the mark by accident. The journey to the wetland was not long, and it did not consume much physical strength at all. The real difficulty of this journey lies in the creatures in the wetland, because they are indeed following him closely, as Sats said, and they are also free from being harmed by the creatures in the wetland. Not long after, everyone passed through the Shimala wetland unscathed and arrived at the venue of the second exam. This is a warehouse built on the edge of Biscayne Forest Park. Looking at the appearance of this warehouse, it is all prefabricated structure, and it should have been assembled not long ago. Maybe it was built just for this exam, and it will probably be abandoned after the exam. Everyone came to the door of the warehouse, and the door opened automatically, revealing two people sitting behind the door. Li Zhoguang took a closer look. It was really big and round. Li Zhoguang was talking about the fat man's belly. There were two people behind the door. A woman in a fishnet shirt was sitting on the sofa, and the fat man behind him was sitting directly on the ground, because ordinary people standing next to the fat man might not be as high as his knees, so he couldn't sit on the sofa. These were the examiners of the second exam, Menchi and Buela. Gurgle, 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 a huge sound came from Buela's stomach, and Li Zhoguang also felt hungry. Because the two examiners of the second exam were both food hunters, the content of the exam was cooking, and the two examiners asked questions separately. Buela's questions were relatively simple. He had been starving for a long time and just wanted to fill his stomach with something real. He immediately proposed the question of roasting a whole pig. As long as you successfully make a roasted pig and give it to him before he is full, and get a delicious evaluation, you will pass. Li Zhoguang grinned. He is really picky. There is only one kind of pig nearby, that is, the giant nose pig living in the Biscayne forest. This kind of pig is huge and there are many of them. Although the combat effectiveness is good, it is only for civilians. For candidates who can pass the first test, it is easy to deal with a porcupine. So the purpose of this scheming fat man to come up with this question is not for the purpose of assessment, but simply to use the public power for personal gain. Just as Li Zhoguang expected, as long as the roast pig was served in front of Buera, he would find nothing unpalatable. That round belly was like a bottomless pit. Even though he was as big as a giant, the pig bones left by him had gradually piled up into a hill. If he continues to eat like this, the remaining bones will probably be larger than his own body. Li Zhoguang suspected that his huge appetite might be related to his telekinesis ability. Li Zhoguang and the others captured a total of 5 wild boars, one for each of them, and kept one for lunch. After the first 4 pigs were roasted, they took their roasted whole pigs to Buera for business. Although Wei Chongfeng has been strengthened twice, it is still a bit difficult for him to carry a huge roasted whole pig. So Li Zhoguang first handed over his roasted whole pig, and then helped Wei Chongfeng take it over. After all 4 people passed the test, they gathered around the roasted whole pig that they had kept. Because he had known that Buera's requirements were not high, the roasted whole pig that Li Zhoguang handed over was cooked in one piece. But the one that was left was eating by itself, so of course it needed some snacks. Xiang Fasai is also a foodie. The last time he was detained by a train from home without any warning, he was not prepared at all. He even wore only his underwear during the entire mission. Being brought upon by him was the greatest shame in my life. But this time, he was much more prepared. With a storage bag, he brought everything he might need. If it weren't for the fact that he only had one flying boat at home, he would probably have to stuff the flying boat into a storage bag to bring it over for fear of getting scratched. So it makes sense for Xiang Fasai to take out a large bag of barbecue ingredients from his storage bag. When they were hunting pigs in the forest, everyone also discovered a beehive. Xiang Fasai easily hugged it back. After opening the beehive, they found that the honey inside did not taste as good as the one brought by Li Zhoguang. So Xiang Fasai simply used the honey to make honey water, and when roasting the pig, he kept brushing it on the pig to keep the pig skin crispy. When the fire was almost ready, Xiang Fasai began to apply barbecue ingredients. Not long after, a strange fragrance hovered in the examination room. Buera was holding a roasted whole pig and was gnawing on it, but after smelling the aroma, he suddenly felt that the roasted pig in his hand no longer smelled good. Menchi also twitched her nose. Although she was young, she had been a hunter for a long time. As a senior food hunter, she is familiar with the ingredients in human society. But she had never smelled this kind of fragrance. She followed the source of the fragrance and saw that several candidates were roasting pigs. She had the impression that those people had already completed Buera's exam questions, so were they preparing their own lunch now? The pig is indeed an ordinary wild-nosed pig, so what's special is the spice? Buera was much more powerful than Menkai. While Menkai was still guessing, Buera had already stood up and walked over. This roasted whole pig is really good, let me try it. After saying that, Boera stretched out his hand to grab the roasted pig, but was blocked by Xiong Fasai. Li Zhoguang said, the portion of our assessment has been given to you. We roasted it ourselves and ate it. Boera frowned when he heard this and recalled the dozens of roasted whole pigs he had eaten before. No, the roasted whole pig just now didn't have this kind of flavor. Li Zhoguang shrugged, your qualification requirements are not high, so we didn't use any spices. Then I will raise my demands now. It's too late, we have already passed the assessment. Then, shall I give you extra points? Boera was so anxious that he was sweating profusely when he saw that Li Zhoguang and the others had turned off the fire and were about to divide the meat. Li Zhoguang took a bite of the crispy pigskin and said vaguely, hiss, it's so hot. Isn't there only a distinction between passing and failing in the hunter exam? There's no bonus points. Seeing the meat being divided bit by everyone, even Huang Shiren and the trio of Zijia who came over got a share. Boera saw this and was anxious in his heart, whatever you want, you can ask for it. It was your words that I was waiting for. Li Zhoguang pretended to ask for it for a while and said, I'll give you half a roast pig. You can accept a task from me for free. No matter what the task is, you can't refuse it. Okay, any kind of mission is fine. Boera, with his mind growing in his stomach, agreed without even thinking about it. Men Chi, who arrived later, didn't have time to stop him. Boera, you agreed to the task without even asking clearly what kind of task it was. Are you a pig? Men Chi lamented his misfortune and was angry that he refused to argue. But Boera didn't care what she was saying at all. He picked up the half-roasted pig promised by Li Zhoguang and started to eat it. But now that the agreement has been made, it is not easy to go back on it. After all, for those who can read, the oath is a relatively special event. There are many telekinesis people who can deceive others, but there are very few telekinesis people who can break contracts. Men Chi glared at Li Zhoguang. This was the man who had deceived her innocent partner. Li Zhoguang asked for another bag of barbecue ingredients from Xiong Fasai, threw it to Boera, and said to Men Chi, don't look at me like that, you can't get the spices we use through conventional channels. For you gourmet hunters, you won't suffer any loss in exchange for such precious spices. Men Chi looked at Li Zhoguang suspiciously, asked Boela for the spices, took out some and put them in her mouth. This was not just one spice. This bag of powdered ingredients used several spices, and even Men Chi could not tell the exact number. And no matter which one, she could not taste the category, all of them were new. Men Chi felt relieved. What Li Zhoguang said just now was right. For them, the food hunters, it was not a loss to exchange a commission for unknown spices. Immediately, she returned the bag of spices to Boela and asked Li Zhoguang, do you have any more of this? Li Zhoguang looked at Xiong Fasai, who spread his hands, that was the last bag of barbecue ingredients, but there are still some soup ingredients. Li Zhoguang remembered that he also brought some spices, and nodded, yes, but what can you use to exchange? Men Chi smiled and said, I will let you pass this exam directly. Li Zhoguang shook his head. He was familiar with the plot and knew that Men Chi would lose his temper and eliminate all the candidates. In the end, it was President Netero who stepped in to clean up the mess. I think passing the exam is not a problem. It's still the same condition as before, a free mission commission, and no matter what the mission is, you can't refuse it. Men Chi was not as easy to fool as Boela. She raised her eyebrows and said, let's talk about it after you pass the assessment. Li Zhoguang knew that with the temper of this willful little girl, she would definitely deliberately make things difficult. But it doesn't matter, the president will take action. Boela ate all the roasted whole pigs made by the candidates and gave them a delicious evaluation, which means that as long as the candidates are able to catch the big nose pig, they can pass his assessment. The second round of assessment was set by Menkai. She provided the candidates with a cooking table, kitchen utensils, and rice, and asked the candidates to make sushi with the things he provided. The only hint Menkai gave was fish. The reason why no specific method was given was to test whether the candidates have the courage to challenge the unknown. Thanks to the sutuo organized regularly by the former company, Li Zhoguang certainly knew how to make sushi. He not only made sushi, but also knitted sweaters, embroidered, baked, brewed beer, and made pottery. God knows what he has learned in the company for so many years. But this is a forest park. Even though it is by the sea, it is 10 kilometers away from the coastline. Only freshwater fish can be caught here. It's not that freshwater fish can't be used to make sushi, but there are too few freshwater fish that can be used to make sushi. And according to Menki personality. Forget it, since we are here, let's give it a try. Li Zhoguang invited Xiang Fasai to go fishing together, and told Qin Daniu and Wei Chongfeng to stay in the examination room, boil some hot water to keep the water warm, and don't let the temperature of the rice drop. After arriving at a river, Li Zhoguang glanced at Xiang Fasai, fry it. Really? It's not illegal to fry fish here. Xiang Fasai, who was easily persuaded by Li Zhoguang, was eager to try. Okay, actually I wanted to do this once a long time ago. Li Zhoguang nodded to show his understanding. In the heart of every Air Force man, it is inevitable that some dark ideas such as frying fish, electrocuting fish and drugging fish will arise. Xiang Fasai's demon power was activated, and his hands pressed into the water. After a muffled sound, a fish floated up from the water. Li Zhoguang used the crimson touch as a fishing net, scooped up all the fish floating on the water, and began to select fish. To make sushi delicious, the fish meat must be either sweet or high in fat. But the most basic thing is that it should not have a fishy smell. Li Zhoguang carefully selected, tore off a piece of meat from each fish, and tasted it in his mouth. Finally, he found a fish that tasted best when eaten raw, selected the fattest ones, and went back with Xiang Fasai. After returning, Li Zhoguang added appropriate amounts of rice vinegar, sugar and salt to the rice while it was still hot, and asked Qin Daniu to stir it carefully to avoid destroying the integrity of the rice grains. He then cut the fish he had just caught open, only taking the fattest part of the fish belly, picking out the bones and peeling it. After rinsing it with clean water, he used a clean towel to absorb the excess water and cut it into thick slices for later use. When the sushi rice cooled down a little, Li Zhoguang soaked his hands in cold water to cool them down. Then he quickly dried his hands with a towel, and while the temperature on his hands did not rise, he quickly made 4 pieces of sushi with fish slices and vinegar rice. Li Zhoguang is still very confident in his cooking skills, although it is far inferior to the chefs in high-end restaurants. But in ordinary Japanese restaurants, in addition to the fish slices being freshly cut, even the vinegar rice is pressed in advance with a mold. It is square, and you can tell at a glance that it is not a shape that can be held by human hands. After the customer places an order, the cut fish slices are directly placed on the pre-made vinegar rice and served. The fish slices are cold, and the vinegar rice is solid. The fish and rice are immediately separated when the chopsticks are picked up. It is simply an insult to the diners, and only some diners who are looking for novelty will buy it. But now it's good. Since the book was published, even if all domestic raw materials are used, many Japanese restaurants have closed down. Now those who can still survive have begun to pursue quality and no longer use semi-prepared sushi to fool people. Li Zhoguang prepared soy sauce and wasabi paste, and asked everyone to bring it to Menkai. In fact, soy sauce also needs to be processed. It is best to mix light soy sauce and dark soy sauce in a ratio of 7:1, and then add bonito flakes, kelp, a small amount of water and sugar to boil. Only in this way can the special soy sauce have enough flavor. However, Menkai did not prepare so many ingredients, so let's make do with it for now. Li Zhoguang brought the dishes to Menkai, and Menkai raised his eyebrows. Have you eaten sushi? Yes. There is no need to hide such things. Menkai picked up a piece of sushi with his hand, dipped it in soy sauce and wasabi paste, and put it in his mouth. Not up to standard. Sure enough, as Li Zhoguang expected, Li Zhoguang waved his hand, and the remaining 3 followed him to leave. Wait, he is not up to standard, why are you leaving? Menkai looked at the sushi behind and said with lingering feeling. Li Zhoguang looked at her with dead fish eyes, haha, their version is exactly the same as mine. Mine is not qualified, can theirs be qualified? You. Menchi knew that these 4 sushi were made by Li Zhoguang, but she just wanted to control Li Zhoguang. Besides, the taste of that sushi was really good. Ahem, in fact, you are just a little bit away from passing. Why don't you try making another one? Menchi couldn't say it clearly. Li Zhoguang raised his eyebrows, okay, let's try again. Soon, he made 4 more sushi. This time, he directly smeared the right amount of wasabi paste on the back of the fish fillet, cut a thin flour knife on the front of the fish fillet, and then brushed soy sauce on it. This is the basic operation of high-end restaurants. The purpose is to skip the step of diners dipping in soy sauce and wasabi by themselves, and the chef directly adjusts the taste to make the quality control more stable. Another 4 sushis were brought to Menchi. Menchi, who had just been served a lump of sushi by Li Oreo, saw Li Zhuguang's improved version and his eyes lit up. Oh, unqualified. Damn it. Li Zhuguang began to understand why there had been cases of examinees beating examiners half to death in the past. At this moment, Li Zhuguang empathized with Hisoka. The Hunter Association gave examiners extremely high authority, but did not formulate corresponding monitoring procedures to confirm whether the examiner's assessments were reasonable. So if you encounter a more willful examiner like Menchi, then the examinee can only pray for good luck. Hehe, it's just a little bit off. As long as it tastes a little bit better, it will pass. Menchi made a nipple gesture. Humph. Let's go. Li Zhuguang returned to the cooking table with a stinky face. Seeing Li Zhuguang being defeated, Menchi secretly thought, hehe, let's see if you dare to make conditions with me. But it's almost there, I'll let him pass next time he comes. Li Zhuguang stuffed the remaining sushi into his mouth and chewed it hard. It's always a little short, right? Look, I'll give you a whole stimulation. Thinking of this, Li Zhuguang took out a small red block from his storage bag. Li Zhuguang is from Rongcheng, but his mother is from Shancheng. So occasionally he would ask someone to bring back some hot pot base from Shancheng to taste the taste of his hometown. Although people from Rongcheng can eat spicy food, the authentic Shancheng hot pot base is still too stimulating for them, so every time they have hot pot at home, they only put a quarter of the Shancheng hot pot base, and the remaining 3/4 are all made from Rongcheng local base. Li Zhuguang only brought compressed biscuits on his last mission, so he had a very dull period. This time he learned his lesson and brought a lot of seasonings, including a piece of Shancheng hot pot base. Because sushi is a cold dish, even if a layer of hot pot base is applied to the bottom of the fish fillet, there will be no irritating smell. Even though there was a faint smell, the only pleasant smell was the smell of spices. Li Zhuguang sent another 4 pieces of sushi to Menchi, and couldn't help but rap in his heart. Ah! Water, water, water! Menchi was like a little mouse that had been force-fed peppercorns, jumping up and down, looking for water. The candidates around were startled by the movement, and some accidentally cut their hands. But when they saw Li Zhuguang standing in front, they lowered their heads silently. This person dared to force the examiner when he took the exam. In this exam, he poisoned the examiner or something, so there was no big fuss. Menchi rushed to a candidate's cooking table, pushed the candidate away, put his head under the faucet, and began to wash away his painful tongue and mouth with running water. After rushing for about 10 minutes, I stopped. After feeling a little better, Menchi pulled out the kitchen knife and rushed to Li Zhuguang, pointing the knife at Li Zhuguang. How dare you poison the food? I want to challenge you. Li Zhuguang spread his hands in astonishment. What? Poison? How could you frame the candidates out of thin air? Mister, you said that my cooking was a little bit bad, so I suddenly had an idea and decided to try the secret recipe I brought from home. Making sauce, I didn't expect such a big reaction from you. Menchi picked up the sushi in front of Qin Danyu, placed it on Li Zhuguang's chest, gritted his teeth and said, you said this is a secret sauce? Then eat it and show it to me. Li Zhuguang picked up the sushi and put it in his mouth without changing his expression. He had anticipated this, so even when he applied the hot pot base, he didn't apply it too thickly. Coupled with the fact that the hot pot base has not been heated and boiled, the spiciness will be greatly reduced. Well, it's delicious. It just tastes like this. Li Zhuguang didn't even expect that the hot pot base actually goes well with sushi. Menchi looked at Li Zhuguang suspiciously, then picked up the piece of sushi in front of Xiang Fasai, put it under his nose and smelled it. Then, she placed the plate on the table, and with a flash of the knife, she cut the sushi on the plate into 2 halves. She picked up half of it, took a small bite, and spit it out immediately. The other half was placed in front of Li Zhuguang. You eat this portion. You still want to eat sushi with me? Forget it, you are the examiner, you are great, I will give you an advantage. Li Zhuguang took it easy and ate the remaining half of the sushi. Seeing Li Zhuguang's unchanging expression, Menqi's big eyes were full of doubts. There was no reason? Impossible? Li Zhuguang licked his lips and said, as a food hunter, your main job is to obtain rare ingredients, discover unknown ingredients, and pay attention to the ability to appreciate more and eat more. You said that this exam is testing the courage to challenge unknown things. Then if you encounter ingredients with unknown taste in the future, will you eat them or not? If your acceptable range of food is so narrow, then stop here. Depending on how good you are, you can become a bounty hunter instead. Because Men Chi obtained a hunter's license at a very young age, she was often distrusted by her employers and colleagues in the process of completing tasks. So besides insulting the food, what she hated most was when people questioned his qualifications as a food hunter. You're not even a hunter, so what qualifications do you have to evaluate me? I'm the examiner now. Men Chi grabbed the last piece of special sushi and put it into his mouth, chewing it hard. She endured the burning sensation in her mouth, forced herself to swallow the sushi, and shouted to Li Zhoguang expressionlessly, "I've eaten all your sushi. It tastes terrible and is unqualified." After saying that, she immediately turned around to avoid Li Zhoguang seeing the snot and tears that were about to burst out. Li Zhoguang saw this scene and turned around and left with satisfaction. Very good. Even if he failed to pass the exam, he succeeded in irritating her. Li Zhoguang found a tree, lay under its shade and began to take a nap. Xiang Fasai came over and asked, "Did we fail the exam?" Li Zhoguang shook his head, "It's not that we failed, but that everyone failed. Her punishment was unfair and she couldn't convince the public. Someone will deal with it." Xiang Fasai nodded. He knew that Li Zhoguang always had a relatively solid plan, so he also sat under the shade of a tree to rest. Wei Chongfeng thought for a while, turned around and left. Menkai is not a boera. Her appetite is within the normal range of a normal person and she will be full within a short time. Before this, no one could meet her standards, so she happily announced that all members had failed the assessment. Not surprisingly, this aroused excitement among the candidates. To be honest, Li Zhoguang believed that Men Qi assessment was indeed biased. After all, in the original work, no matter what kind of hunter he is, his foundation is his own combat power, not anything else. Being able to cook well has never been a necessary skill. I don't know whether it was Boera inside the court or Sats peeking outside the court, but someone secretly reported to the association. Just before the candidates were about to attack the examiner, the president's airship came over. In fact, there is no precedent for the elimination of all members in the past, and even elimination of all members is a common occurrence. Maybe the information showed that Hisoka and Ilmi were among the candidates this time, so the president rushed over. Hisoka beat the examiner half to death in the last exam, and Ilmi is also a killer who strikes without scruples. If Men Chi angers these two people, he may really lose his life, and may even implicate Boera. An old man jumped from the airship and landed in the examination room. When Men Chi and Buletinhara saw the visitor, they immediately bowed and said, "Hello, President." When all the candidates saw the president of the Hunter Association coming, they didn't dare to make any mistakes. After all, everyone knows that Isaac Nitro, the president of the Hunter Association, is the strongest man in the world. The president glanced at Men Chi and asked, "What is the purpose of your assessment this time?" Men Chi lowered his head, "The courage to challenge the unknown." "So your conclusion now is that all candidates have attitude problems, so they all failed, right?" Seeing the president come forward, Men Chi calmed down and said ashamedly, "It was because some candidates said something that belittled me, which made me angry. Then, after all, you yourself understand that your judgment is unfair." Men Chi bowed to the bottom, "I'm sorry, I was controlled by my emotions and I am not qualified to be an examiner." The president nodded, "Since you think you are not qualified to be an examiner, the results of this assessment will be invalidated. You will come up with a new question for the assessment, but this time, you are both an examiner and a candidate. You must lead by example and set an example for everyone." Men Chi nodded, thought for a while, and came up with a new question. Boiled eggs in plain water. With the president's supervision this time, Men Chi did not dare to do anything rash. He directly borrowed the president's airship and pulled all the candidates to the side of a large rift. Men Chi introduced, "The boiled eggs I mentioned are not ordinary eggs, but grape spider eggs. In order to protect their eggs, grape spiders usually hang silk between such large rifts and lay eggs on them." The candidates came to the edge of the rift and looked down. They saw that the rift was very deep, with visibility of only a few hundred meters. The range below was not exposed to sunlight, and only a dark hole could be seen. Of course, there were no grape spider eggs. Listening carefully, in addition to the sound of the wind, you can also vaguely hear the sound of water. Men Qi walked to the edge of the rift and jumped down. Affected by gravity, Men Qi fell rapidly and soon disappeared. Among the people present, only a few people who had mastered telekinesis abilities and Xiang Fasai could still see Men Qi figure. Just when she was about to fall into the rapid water at the bottom of the valley, she discovered the spider silk woven by the grape spider with her amazing eyesight and reflexes. He pulled with both hands very quickly, grabbed a strand of spider silk, used the elasticity of the spider silk to offset the speed of his fall, and finally hung firmly on the spider web. After collecting a few spider eggs from the spider web, he quickly climbed up the side of the Great Rift Valley on his hands and feet before the grape spiders surrounded him. The reason why it runs so fast is not because of the amazing fighting power of the grape spider, but because as a food hunter, killing chickens to obtain eggs and depleting the lake for fishing is the most undesirable behavior. When Men Qi came up, she took out the eggs of the grape spider and showed them to everyone, and asked everyone to follow the method she just did to get the eggs. Li Zhoguang nodded. This test was more in line with the courage to explore the unknown she said at the beginning, and there was only a large pot on the side of the Grand Canyon, and water was boiling in the pot. It seems that the spider eggs collected by the candidates are boiled in one pot, so there is no difference in cooking techniques. In short, this assessment is the same as Boera's assessment. As long as you can obtain the specified ingredients, you can pass the test. However, Li Zhoguang did not act. What does such a non-technical task have to do with Mr. Li, who hates spiders? All he has to do is ask Xin Daniu and Xiang Fasai to get a copy for him. By the way, there is also Wei Changfeng's share. After all, with his physical fitness, if he jumps, even if he catches the spider web, he will probably dislocate his hands and fall into the water. Xiang Fasai and Xin Daniu jumped in like Men Qi did, and soon brought a lot of spider eggs up. The four of them each took one spider egg and threw it into the pot. The remaining spider eggs were left by Xiang Fasai and Xin Daniu. Xin Daniu collected it himself. It seemed that both of them were planning to bring some local specialties home. Some people, like Li Zhoguang, did not dare to jump and had no companions to help, so they gave up on the exam. There are also some people who jumped in immediately, but due to poor skills, they did not catch the cobweb and fell directly into the rapids at the bottom of the valley. They wanted a one-way ticket to the sea entrance. After the spider eggs were cooked, everyone had their share. It tastes a lot like eggs, but has a richer flavor and melts in your mouth. After tasting this hard-boiled egg, Li Zhoguang believed that whether in his world or in this world, there would be many rich people willing to pay for this delicious bite. No wonder there is a branch of gourmet hunters. Maybe a lucky gourmet hunter can earn much more in a year than a bounty hunter of the same level. Men Qi watched Li Zhoguang enjoying her share of delicious food. She stood beside Li Zhoguang and said in a strange tone, that person didn't just pick the spider eggs by himself. Li Zhoguang raised his eyebrows. What kind of evil is this stinky girl going to do? How about feeding her Huangshuren's stinky farts this time? Forget it, let's not do it. Her position is so upright, so just kick her down. As a professional hunter, she should be fine, right? Just as Li Zhoguang moved slowly and without leaving a trace behind Men Qi, he heard Men Qi say again, forget it, teamwork is also a common method for hunters to complete tasks. Also, your little gift is quite interesting, I will forgive you. You. After saying that, Men Qi left, leaving Li Zhoguang standing there alone in a daze. What gift? I never sent it. Is his anorectal omakase considered a gift? Suddenly Li Zhoguang thought that after they failed the exam, they were all resting under the shade of the trees, and Wei Changfeng did not know where he had gone. Li Zhoguang glanced at Wei Changfeng, the gift she mentioned just now. Wei Changfeng cupped his hands and said, the success or failure of our task depends on the help of the other party. It is not a loss to make a good friend with him with a small gift. Li Zhuguang's eyes widened. Did you expect that you would encounter this situation and prepare gifts in advance? Wei Changfeng smiled a little cautiously, I have a little girl at home who has always been close to me. Li Zhoguang understood. He originally planned to buy some novel gadgets to give to his sister during the mission, but when he saw a conflict between Li Zhoguang and the examiner, he simply gave the gift to Men Qi. I don't know how he communicated with Men Qi when giving gifts. The failed candidates left in disappointment, while those who passed the exam boarded the airship and headed to the examination room for the third exam. The airship is quite large and can ensure that each candidate can have a room to rest. After Li Zhoguang got on the airship, he told everyone that they would have an exam tomorrow and should take a rest early. He also ate some food provided by the airship restaurant and found a room to sleep. There will be the third exam tomorrow, and only a heartless person would stay up all night playing ball with an old man. In the private room of the restaurant, the 3 examiners from the previous 2 exams were also dining and chatting about the candidates taking the exam this time. Men-Chi said casually, "How many of you guys think this year's candidates can pass?" Sats recalled his extravagant exam and said, "There are quite a lot of great candidates this year. Even 2 people from the Kfunki family came. There should be many people who can pass." Men-Chi said in surprise, "Is the person who beat up the enemy guest here too? Is number 99, Killua?" Sats nodded, "It's number 99, Killua, and number 301, Ilmi, Men-Chi seemed to have remembered something. "No wonder, when I announced that all the candidates were unqualified, number 99, Killua, was the one who burst out with the most murderous intent among all the candidates." Boera added on the side, "I think number 406, Li Zhoguang, number 407, Qin Dainiu, number 408, Xiang Fasai, and number 409, Wei Chongfeng, are also quite powerful. Number 44, Hisoka, is the one who seriously injured the examiner in the last exam. He has already crossed the door, but I found that he always took a detour when he met these 4 people. These 4 people should not be easy." Sats shook his head and held his forehead as he recalled what happened. So, he told the 2 of them what Li Zhoguang did during the first exam. The 2 people's pupils trembled when they heard it, and Boera laughed out loud, "Ha ha ha, this is very similar to what number 406, Li Zhoguang, would do. With this kind of behavior that is difficult to infer with common sense, he will be a leader in the future. An excellent hunter." Men-Chi frowned and said, "If you work with this kind of person on a mission, it will definitely be the most difficult thing to do. I don't want to work with him in the future." Boera touched his head, "Eh? Men-Chi, do you still hate him? Didn't he already apologize?" Men-Chi subconsciously touched the bracelet on his wrist, remembering that this afternoon, the man's companion had sent him this bracelet. He pointed at the bracelet, then at the man, and finally bowed to apologize. "The annoyance in my heart also dissipated a bit, but I still said bravely, even if I apologize, I still ask someone else to do it. It is really insincere." But he hesitated for a moment and then said, "But if you think about it carefully, number 406, Li Zhoguang, is not without merit. At least you can entrust him to try ingredients you dare not try in the future. Anyway, his mouth is as if it is made of steel." Boera recalled Li Zhoguang's words and deeds, "I think you are quite similar to him in some aspects. It's so similar." Okay, it doesn't look like it, it doesn't look like it." Early the next morning, the airship reached the top of the trap tower. The trap tower is a huge stone prison, cylindrical in shape, filled with traps, and looks like a stone pillar from a distance. Some regular prisoners without telekinesis who are captured by bounty hunters will be imprisoned in trap towers. This time, we simply let these prisoners reuse waste and add it to the third exam as part of the assessment. Because they are all regular prisoners, it is not difficult for the candidates to deal with them, and even if they use this exam to escape from prison collectively, they will not cause too much trouble. When all the candidates stepped out of the airship flew away. As it went away, the topic of the third exam was played on the loudspeaker. The time limit is 72 hours. Reach the ground alive. And it is forbidden to go down from the outside of the tower. After Li Zhoguang heard the notice, he called the other 3 people to come and gather. If he remembered correctly, in the original exam, candidates were not prohibited from going down from outside the tower. It's just that when a rock climber climbed down from the outside of the trap tower and was eaten by a group of strange birds, no one was ready to leave the tower. So this time there is such a sudden addition, that means something has changed. Thinking about it carefully, only the Hunter Association knew about their possession of flying props. This was actually expected, and Li Zhoguang didn't care too much. After the other 3 people came over, Li Zhoguang asked, "Did you just go to bed last night?" Wei Chongfeng nodded, "I followed the chief priest's instructions and went to bed very early last night." Xiang Fasai scratched his neck, "I went to bed very early last night, but I was a little hungry in the middle of the night, so I went out to eat supper. I met the old man during the day in the restaurant. It seemed that he wanted to chat with me, but then if you find that you don't understand the language, forget it." Qin Dainiu said with some embarrassment, Just after I went to bed last night, Xiaja and his friends came to see me and dragged me around on the yacht. Then I met the old man. We started playing ball in a daze until midnight. Just went back to sleep. Li Zhoguang raised his eyebrows. What was the result of your game? Qin Daniu said, I found out that the old man deliberately asked us to use only one hand and one foot. I couldn't get angry, so I used all my strength to force him to use both hands and feet. Then he stopped playing, maybe because he was angry. But Xiaja seemed quite happy. Li Zhoguang nodded. It seemed that their group had been noticed by the president, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter that Killua killed 2 people because of an argument on the airship. Their group was already considered a good and lawful camp, and the Hunter Association probably wouldn't deliberately target candidates who were suspected of being warcraft. Li Zhoguang said to everyone, now we need to go down to the ground through this stone pillar. There are many secret doors on the top of this stone pillar. We need to find the secret door leading to the same road. Brother Fasai, do you have relevant detection skills? Li Zhoguang turned to Xiang Fasai and asked. Xiang Fasai nodded, these are all ordinary stones, which can't isolate my demonic power. It's a trivial matter, it's up to me. After a while, Xiang Fasai found 4 secret doors. Under these 4 secret doors is the same room. The 4 people passed through the secret door and jumped down at the same time. The 4 people entered the room and found that there was a small amount of water and food in the room, which was evenly divided into 4 parts, and there was only one exit. Above the exit were written the words "The Path of Saving Money." Anyway, there was only one exit and there was no other choice. After everyone picked up water and food, they headed for the exit. In fact, before they came to take the exam, they had prepared a lot of water and food in their storage bags. They took away the water and food here just because they were afraid that these items would be the key props for the next step. After walking a few steps, we arrived at a large space with 4 treadmills placed in the corners and a large round table in the middle. There were 4 prisoners in this space already sitting at the table, all 4 of them were young women. Seeing the candidates coming, the youngest one shrank back timidly. The older woman stepped forward to negotiate and said, please sit down, welcome to the gambling game. Li Zhoguang glanced at them. None of the prisoners locked up here knew how to read. With 4 women showing no traces of training on their bodies, it seemed unlikely that this game was about force. Li Zhoguang greeted everyone, sat down on the other side of the table, and asked, what are the rules of the game? The older woman said, I know you got 4 portions of food in the room at the beginning, and we also have 4 portions here. After a while the room would draw a curtain between us, and neither of us would be able to see what was happening on the other side. We each placed food on the table, in the quantity we chose. Once both parties confirm, the curtain will rise again. If the number of food placed is exactly 1 less than that of the other party, the party with the smaller portion wins. If the number of food placed is more than 1 less than that of the other party, the party with more food wins. The winner gets all the food on the table. If both parties place the same number of food portions, both parties lose and need to destroy all food on the table. The game only lasts 1 round, and the winner or loser is determined once. After explaining the basic rules, the older woman pointed to the door behind her and added, this is the only exit. If you want to open this door, you need to offer 10 pieces of food. Li Zhoguang discovered Huadian, we only have 8 portions of food in total. How can we get 10 portions together when we only play the game once? The woman pointed to the 4 treadmills and said, there are counters on these treadmills. As long as you complete a certain mileage, you will get a portion of food. Li Zhoguang smiled and said, if I choose to exchange food for running directly, then I cannot play games with you, and I can leave directly after collecting enough portions. The woman smiled and said, of course this is also an option. Maybe you have also discovered that the amount of each portion of food is very small. I want to remind you that the road you are on is called the road of careful calculation, and the food you get is also calculated. The food you get from running is far from enough to replenish the physical energy and water you consume while running. This exam lasts a total of 72 hours. If you collect 10 portions of food by running at the beginning, it is only enough to open this door. In addition to these 10 portions of food, you need to get more food as a supply later. Now you are in a state of fullness and don't think it's a big deal. But I don't think you can go far if you get food at a loss from the beginning. Li Zhoguang nodded and asked, according to the rules, I am encouraged to get food by running first and then participate in the gambling. This game is ultimately testing our balance between the food we hold, our own physical fitness in the game process. The woman replied, this conclusion is partially correct. Li Zhoguang did not delve into where his conclusion was wrong. He suddenly laughed, you four are all women, and we are all men. We must admit that women are naturally weaker than men in physical performance. In addition, the rules of this game are that the more food you have, the greater the advantage. We can get much more food than you at the beginning and form a crushing advantage over you. As long as you put all the food on from the first game, you will lose anyway. Then, what is the meaning of the so-called game? The older woman also laughed. The older woman also laughed. This situation was taken into consideration when the game was designed. As you can see, we are all weak women. I'm not afraid of you laughing at us. Even if the four of us tried our best, we couldn't get even one piece of food, so we have another way to exchange food. Can you explain it in detail? We can exchange food by increasing our own sentences. How long is one piece of food worth? When talking about the sentence, the older woman's face was a little unnatural. One piece of food is worth 10 years. Can it be exchanged indefinitely? No, we have been here for 10 years, but we still have 20 years of sentence. Assuming we can live to 100 years old, we can deduct the remaining sentence in our current age. After rounding, we can respectively the exchanged food is 5 portions, 5 portions, 6 portions, 7 portions. Li Zhoguang glanced at the faces of the four women in front of him, and then looked at their prison uniforms. His expression was no longer cynical as before, and began to become a little serious. That means you only have 27 portions at most? Then I can win as long as I get 29 portions. The older woman shook her head, those fitness equipment are specially made. Even if the four of you are top athletes with physical strength far beyond ordinary people, you will never be able to get 29 portions of food by running to form an absolute advantage. Li Zhoguang complained in his heart, that's because you don't understand the exaggerated degree of my physical strength, and I have a secret weapon. The older woman added, besides, we don't have as many as 27 portions. Any explanation? We rely on increasing each person can only exchange one portion of food for the sentence, which is 10 years. The extra portion and the portion 1 can only be exchanged for 1 year of sentence reduction. Oh, so, in order to ensure that you do not lose, each person can only exchange one portion, plus the original portion, a total of 8 portions. If you exchange one more portion, it will be a loss. I only need to collect 10 portions to win. No, if you grit your teeth and exchange one more portion, you can collect 9 portions. If the situation is 9 to 10, 9 wins, and the 10 portions you win can be exchanged for 10 years, which can just offset the extra portion exchanged, and you can earn another year. Then I need to collect 11 portions to ensure that you will lose no matter you win or lose. The older woman nodded, you can think of this, the real game has begun. The real game? The older woman said, I have just said that this road is called the road of careful calculation. Not only has the food obtained been calculated, but even your physical strength has been calculated. I know that your first test is about physical strength. The average physical strength level of the candidates who passed the first test was calculated at the end of the test. The average physical strength consumed by you in the second test, as well as the recovery from rest and meals last night, have all been calculated. I said that these treadmills are specially made. According to the average level calculated, each candidate is allowed to consume only enough physical strength to obtain one portion of food in this stage while ensuring that he can complete the next journey. If you want to get more food, the mileage requirement will double. So even if some of you have physical strength that greatly exceeds the average of this group of candidates, after obtaining the second portion of food, the remaining physical strength will definitely not be enough to support the completion of the next journey. In other words, like us, you can only exchange one portion of food each, which adds up to 8 portions, while ensuring that you do not lose money. If you want to gain an advantage in numbers, someone must make sacrifices. Li Zhoguang stroked his chin. This game is a one-shot game. If you want to move forward, you have to pay 10 portions of food no matter what. In order to ensure the next supply, you have to win more portions of food in one game. In terms of the rules of the game, the more food you put on the table, the greater the chance of winning. But the loss line of both sides is 8 portions. According to the game psychology analysis, when faced with this situation, most people tend to bet more food within the loss line. It is easy for both sides to bet 8 portions. But there is another rule in the game. If both sides bet the same amount of food, both sides lose and all the food on the table will be destroyed. This rule effectively avoids the situation where both sides bet on the loss line. Li Zhoguang finally understood the true meaning of this game at this time. This game is indeed a game, but the chips of the game have never been food and physical strength. Both sides bet on the people who come to the stage are human beings. In fact, it is very simple to win, that is sacrifice. This game is about who is more ruthless. The more sacrifices, the greater the chance of winning. The prisoners who sacrifice will increase their sentences, and the people who sacrifice on your side will fail the exam. As for robbing the other party's food, haha, the woman has been emphasizing from the beginning that the four of them are weak women who cannot use physical strength to exchange for food. Now that Li Zhoguang thinks about it, it is hard not to believe that the other party is using hints to induce him to use violence to snatch food. As for the consequences of using violence, Li Zhoguang does not believe that the person who can design such a bunch of people will reserve such a stupid cheating loophole. Li Zhoguang rubbed his temples with a headache. Compared with his side, the path chosen by the protagonist and his party in the original book is simply a simple mode. His side is still good. The four of them are a team. They only need to play games with the outside world. If they encounter four individual players teaming up to pass the level, there is no hope. Come back next year. Moreover, from the beginning, Li Zhoguang noticed one thing that made him feel that it was not so easy for him to win. And if his guess was true, simply winning the game would only make him feel uncomfortable. I only have one last question. Excuse me. Did you design this game? The older woman shook her head. No, it was designed by Mr. Liber, the warden of the trap tower. Li Zhoguang was silent for a moment. I have finished asking questions, let's start the game. The woman on the opposite side heard this and nodded to a camera. Immediately, a huge curtain fell, dividing the entire space in half, and no one could see the situation on the opposite side. There was a flash of lightning on the curtain. A closer look showed that the entire curtain was woven from thin metal wires, and it should be electrified. Li Zhoguang briefly explained the situation of the game to everyone, and then turned to Wei Chongfeng and said, "You are not strong enough, so stay aside and rest." Wei Chongfeng responded with an ugly face. Since joining Li Zhuguang's small group, he was too eager to make contributions, but unfortunately his own strength was too poor. It seems that there is no chance this time. Li Zhoguang directly activated the steel armor that he and Qin Daniu carried with them. Without human control, the steel armor can still complete relatively simple tasks. Comparing physical strength? Can people compare with machines equipped with arc reactors? When the two steel armors got on the treadmill, Li Zhoguang found the problem, because their speed was relatively slow. Li Zhoguang got on a treadmill to try it himself, and he finally understood what the special treadmill that the woman emphasized was. From static to moving, the user needs to hold the handrail and use a lot of force to start the treadmill, and it is not easy to increase the speed. This means that once the treadmill reaches the ideal speed, it needs to run continuously. If you stop to rest and restart it, it will inevitably cause a waste of physical strength. This design will make the cost of resting in the middle higher, and even this is calculated, it is indeed careful calculation. However, this is meaningless to Li Zhoguang. Li Zhoguang and the two armors occupy 3 treadmills in total. Although Qin Daniu and Xiang Fasai were very strong, there were only 4 treadmills, so they took turns using one to run and recover their strength. The 4 treadmills were running at high speed. After half an hour, the mileage of the 4 machines reached the standard. A pipe protruded from the wall next to it, and 4 pieces of food dropped down. Wei Chongfeng ran over quickly, picked up the food and put it away. An hour later, 4 more were dropped. An hour and a half later, 4 more. Wei Chongfeng counted the food in his hand. Adding the 4 portions at the beginning, there were 16 portions in total. He opened his mouth and said, "Master Priest, you have collected 16 portions of food. Is that enough?" Li Zhoguang shook his head and did not stop running. "I have a guess. If my guess is wrong, then we must have at least 25 pieces of food to ensure a guaranteed win. If my guess is right, 23 servings will win. However, 30 portions of food are needed to lose beautifully." Several other people were confused after hearing this. It would be nice to just win the game, so why should we consider losing beautifully? Li Zhoguang explained his conjecture and his plan in detail. Xiang Fasai smacked his lips. "You are still too narrow-minded. I didn't notice it at first. Daniel and I ran in relay, so it didn't consume much. I have no objection. Where is Daniel? Qin Daniu also shook his head, I don't have any objection either. Time passed minute by minute, and a total of 14 hours were consumed. Li Zhoguang and his party obtained 28 portions of food, plus the first 4 portions, for a total of 32 portions. Li Zhoguang placed all the food on the table. Li Zhoguang came to the curtain and shouted to the opposite side, we are ready. Hearing Li Zhuguang's shout over there, he also said, we are also ready. After confirmation from both parties, the curtain slowly rose, and both parties saw the food on the opposite side. When they saw that Li Zhuguang's side had far more food than his side, everyone on the other side showed a look of despair. Even if you don't count them in detail, you can easily see that the portions of food on Li Zhuguang's side are much larger than those on his side. One of the female prisoners collapsed and yelled, this is impossible. How can there be so much food? Li Zhoguang shrugged, you also know that this link is set based on the average physical level of this batch of candidates. You are not lucky. We have surpassed the average candidates too much. After hearing Li Zhuguang's explanation, the 4 of them knelt on the ground helplessly. The older woman forcibly cheered up and said to Li Zhoguang, you guys won. You can take the food and go. Li Zhoguang waved his hand and said, no hurry, let me count the food. When the defeated women heard this, their eyes showed shock and anger. Is this killing someone but also killing someone? But the situation is stronger than the people. Not to mention that this game prohibits the use of violence. Even if it is possible, they are really just 4 weak women with no strength. Li Zhoguang counted the food they put on the table one by one, very carefully. 20 portions, this is beyond my expectation. I thought there would be 21 portions. Li Zhoguang coated the food after counting, turned to the female prisoners and said, I'm not in a hurry to leave, why not let's talk first. Take your food and get out of here, we have nothing to talk about. One of the female prisoners said bitterly. Li Zhoguang didn't care about her attitude. He picked up a piece of food and asked, is this what you exchanged for your prison term? It's all mine now. If I give you 4 pieces back, you can exchange it for at least 10 years. The older woman suddenly raised her head, looked at Li Zhoguang blankly and asked, what do you want? Except for my little sister, we can give you everything we have, but, can you not do it in front of my little sister? Stop, stop, stop. Who do you think I am? Live show male lead? You don't want me to do it yet. I really just want to chat. The older woman stood up, what do you want to talk about? Li Zhoguang said casually, let's start with the name. The older woman introduced, my name is Ikea, I am 32 years old this year. These are my second sister Elola, my third sister Ai Lucy, and my youngest sister Avina. How did you get in? Ikea looked a little ugly, fraud. Just now when you were talking about the amount you could redeem, you mentioned that your little sister could redeem 7 servings of food. So your little sister should be less than 15 years old, right? Ikea nodded, yes, Nana is only 12 years old this year. He is the same age as Xiaja. Some people get their hunting licenses at the age of 12, and some people have been in prison for 10 years at the age of 12. It has to be said that no matter which world they are in, there are differences. Li Zhoguang continued to ask, if you have been in prison for 10 years, then your little sister came in when she was 2 years old. Is a 2-year-old baby capable of defrauding? A trace of pain flashed across Ikea's eyebrows, we are dependent on each other, and no one else can take care of Nana. In addition, the person who was deceived last time is very powerful. He is also happy to see our whole family in jail, so we just follow the plan. Li Zhoguang nodded and said, now that your little sister has grown up, do you regret it? If she stays for another 20 years, she will be 32 years old. We cannot let her best years be spent in the trap tower. So the 3 of you gave up the hope of going out and exchanged all the food you could exchange for it, just so that she could reduce her sentence. Yes. You were careful, you didn't let her redeem even 1. Akiya shook her head, we came here because of our own fault. Nana is innocent. Even if the possibility is very small, we can't let her sentence increase. It seems that my guess is right. It's also your misfortune to meet us. If it were an ordinary candidate, even if he knew your plan, he would not be able to win. Such an unequal game, not to mention the difficulty of winning, even if it is hard to win, it will be disgusting. It's really a shit job. Li Bo is quite good at making games, but I don't know if he doesn't understand people's hearts, or he understands people's hearts too well. Akiya smiled bitterly, you saw it a long time ago? No wonder you are willing to consume so much physical strength to gain an absolute advantage. Li Zhoguang explained, as soon as I came in, I found that your little sister curious and fearful, they stared at us whenever they had the chance, as if they had never seen outsiders before. And among the four of you, only your little sister's cuffs and trouser legs were the least worn. It seems that even here, you have taken good care of her. Plus, I didn't see any nervousness in you. Nervous? If it was really a game between the two sides, you couldn't be so relaxed, unless you had already decided everything. Akiya touched her forehead, so that's how it is. Li Zhoguang took 11 portions of food from the table, leaving only 19 on it. We admit defeat in this game. Thank you. Akiya and her sisters fell to the ground. Li Zhoguang walked around them, called a group of people and walked straight to the door of the exit. Seeing a large frame next to the door, he threw 10 portions of food into it. The door slowly opened. When Li Zhoguang was about to walk out of the door, he stopped and said, our strength is much greater than that of ordinary candidates. At least one of us will be able to become a hunter. Hunters have the authority to check your information. If I find out that it is not your little sister who has been released on parole after I go out, I will kill you or the other people who have been released. After all, from the beginning, whether it was negotiations or decisions, it was you who were the only one doing it. It can be seen that you have a dominant position among the four of you, and it is not impossible to force the other three to make sacrifices. I didn't see the process of your exchange with my own eyes, so I don't know if it was really exchanged by only the three of you. Moreover, whether it is the rhetoric or the details, these can be faked. After all, you are scammers. After that, Li Zhoguang left without looking back. After exiting the gate, they came to a long corridor, but not far away, they were blocked by a stone door. Everyone searched and searched in the corridor, but could not find any switch that could open the stone door. Finally, Xiang Fasai suggested, there is nothing we can do. Let's try to open it by force. Li Zhoguang nodded, summoned a crimson touch and slashed towards the stone door, indeed easily cutting the door into pieces. At the same time, when they were slashing, everyone also discovered that the stone gate could be pushed. After crossing the remains of the stone gate, I found another identical stone gate blocking the front less than 10 meters away. This time it was Xiang Fasai who pushed the door. When he pushed the door, the entire corridor began to shake as the door opened. Everyone discovered that this corridor was completely cut off by dozens of stone doors. As long as one door was pushed open, all the doors would open. But the force required to push the door is really not small, and it needs to be supported all the time. If you let go, all the doors will start to close automatically. If it is an ordinary candidate, one person cannot open the door at all. It requires the joint efforts of 2 people to open it, and even if it is opened, it will not last long. This requires 2 people to work in groups. After one group opens the door, the other group immediately runs to the front to hold the door in front, and they advance alternately. It was originally intended to be a small level that consumes physical strength, but now I met Li Zhoguang and his party. They didn't bother to take the trouble and pushed the door open alternately. Li Zhoguang walked in front to open the way. 4 crimson touches flew alternately. Wherever they passed, the stone door was cut into pieces. The group passed through the corridor without any hindrance. After passing through the corridor, they came to another space, where the same 4 prisoners were waiting. However, all 4 of them were men, and they were all strong and muscular men. Li Zhoguang also discovered that like the previous space, there was a door behind the 4 people, which seemed to be the exit. However, there is only half of the ground in this space, and the half near the door is a bottomless ravine. When the 4 of them saw the candidates coming, they immediately rushed over. Li Zhoguang raised his eyebrows. Is this a martial arts fight? It's so good, who would be willing to use their brains when things can be solved with violence? Li Zhoguang moved his joints and looked at the 4 people rushing towards him. He had already begun to think about who to attack first. But after the 4 people rushed in front of Li Zhoguang and the others, they suddenly stopped. Muscles. The strong man stretched his biceps forward. Balance. Strong man B stretched out his latissimus dorsi muscles. Shapely. The strong man C spread his chest sideways. Line. The strong man flexed his triceps. Looking at the 4 strong men in front of him doing the required bodybuilding movements, Li Zhoguang just wanted to use his toes to get out of the 3 rooms and 1 living room. 4 people suddenly rushed out to do this, and the level of embarrassment was only slightly worse than that of the Jinyu Special Forces. Li Zhoguang waved to them impatiently, okay, just tell me the rules, I'm in a hurry. Strongman B was surprised, what? Our bodies are strong and pure, don't you feel that your soul is being healed? Not at all. The strongman B looked at Li Zhoguang with some disgust, then your soul is quite dark. Believe it or not, I'm going to tear your mouth apart. Strongman A interrupted the 2 of them playing treasure, ahem. The joke ends here, and your journey ends here, because you met here. Strongman A, Muscle Agent Team. Strongman B, Captain the Ghost. Strongman C, Body Veyron. Strongman Ding, Commander of Protein Powder. Li Zhoguang thought they were introducing themselves, but the 4 of them started fighting among themselves. Didn't we agree yesterday to use the name I chose? How I remember is that everyone agreed to use the name I thought of. I was the one who chose the name. You've got a terrible name. Yours sucks. Li Zhoguang suppressed the anger in his heart, I'm really in a hurry. Why don't you tell me how to open the door first, and then you can argue slowly yourself. Upon hearing this, Strongman A stopped the quarrel and said, let's do business first. Strongman B, our level is very simple. It's just a test of strength. Tell me, how to test it. The strongman C took out 2 iron rods, handed one to Li Zhoguang, and kept one for himself. The rules are very simple, it's just about lifting weights. Each side chooses 1 person to compete. The person who needs to lift the rod above his head needs to hold on longer. People win. During this period, as long as the bar is lower than the head or the bell falls on the ground, it will be lost. The losing team needs to give all the food they carry to the winner. Also, it is forbidden to attack the opponent during the game. Of course, win or lose, we will open the door behind you. Li Zhoguang picked up the iron rod, weighed it, and asked, where is the bell piece? Strongman Ding said, of course they are my teammates. Li Zhoguang looked at them. The 4 of them were almost the same height and shape, and probably weighed about the same. Calculated this way, no matter which one of them takes part in the competition, they have to lift a weight equivalent to 3 times their own weight. If it was just about lifting, Li Zhoguang could do it even more than 3 times the weightlifters in his world. But in addition to lifting it up, you also have to hold on for a long time, which is a bit difficult. Li Zhoguang looked at Xiang Fasai, who was the most powerful among them all, introduced him to the basic rules and asked, Brother Fasai, can you do it? Xiang Fasai nodded, it's a small matter. The 3 of you combined are not as heavy as my flying boat. Back then, my wife. I made a bet with my wife and held up the flying boat for a whole day. Even at night, I slept with the flying boat held up. Li Zhoguang patted Xiang Fasai's shoulder. I won't say more. Those who understand will understand. Xiang Fasai lifted the iron bar. Qin Dainiu turned over first and stood in the middle of the iron bar. Then Li Zhoguang rode on Qin Dainiu's shoulder. Finally, Wei Chongfeng was caught by Qin Dainiu, thrown up, and rode on Li Zhuguang's shoulder. Huang Shiren squatted on Wei Changfeng's head. The prisoner camp was led by strongman A holding up the iron bar, B and C sitting at both ends, and D standing in the middle of the iron bar like Qin Dainiu. I thought it would be a protracted battle, but in the end, I saw strongman A lifting the iron bar and rushing towards the gully behind him. Hey, what are you doing? Wait, you're not thinking. No. The 3 people who were holding the bells had not reacted yet, and were pushed hard by strongman A and flew into the ravine. Ah! A miserable cry came from the bottom of the ravine, and then the sound became smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared. Strongman A raised the empty iron bar, turned around, and looked at Li Zhoguang and the others proudly, let's continue the game. Seeing this scene, Qin Dainiu frowned slightly. He hated this kind of treacherous person the most. Fortunately, Xiang got rich. Although Huijing city was relatively peaceful, it was not like he had never been out of the city. There were also quite a few things happening outside the city. Li Zhoguang originally thought that people who didn't have the ability to read would not last long in this kind of competition. But it seems like this is going to be a protracted battle. It's not that Li Zhoguang has no confidence in Xiang Fasai, it's just that his current posture is really uncomfortable. Li Zhoguang thought for a while and asked strongman A, you just said that we cannot attack each other. So, how can it be counted as an attack? Strongman A smiled and replied, whether it is direct or indirect physical contact, it will be counted as an attack. Then you are so ugly that you make me feel sick. Does this count as an attack? I'm so handsome. Just tell me whether it counts or not. It doesn't count. Then your body odor is too strong and it touched me. Is this considered an attack? What do you know? This is a manly fragrance. You answer my question directly. It doesn't count. Oh, smell is not considered an attack. Li Zhoguang lowered his head and asked, Brother Fasai, how are your breath-holding skills? Xiang Fasai said, I have no problem sleeping in the water. Li Zhoguang asked Qin Daniu and Wei Chongfeng again. Qin Daniu said that if he stayed still, he could hold his breath for half an hour. Wei Chongfeng was ashamed. He held his breath for about the same amount of time as ordinary people. Li Zhoguang said it was no big deal, and so did he. Li Zhoguang stretched his hand behind his back, asked Jarvis to pop out the helmet of the steel armor, and handed it to Wei Chongfeng to wear. Using the same method, he took off Qin Daniu's helmet and put it on himself. Brother Fa Cai, walk up to him. If he runs, follow him. You and Daniu will listen to my instructions in a while. I ask you to hold your breath, so you hold your breath. Everyone probably understood what Li Zhoguang was going to do. Only Strongman A was there and strange. He only saw the people on the opposite side. They exchanged a few words in an unknown language and then began to move towards him. Strongman A immediately reminded him, what do you want to do? According to the rules, you are not allowed to attack each other. Li Zhoguang chuckled and said, we have no intention of attacking you, but according to what you said, the smell is not an attack. That's right, but you. Before Strongman A could finish his words, Li Zhoguang shouted, hold your breath. Huang Shuren, now. Immediately, Strongman A felt an indescribable smell rushing from his nose to Tianling Gaer. The smell was so strong that it stimulated his nerves and gave him a strong desire to vomit. At this time, Strongman A could only lift the pole with one hand and cover his mouth and nose with one hand. But it didn't mean much. The smell still passed through his fingers and drifted into his nose, making the nauseating feeling even stronger. He desperately suppressed the desire to vomit, telling himself that he couldn't vomit, and it would be over if he vomited. But suddenly he heard the sound of vomiting coming from behind him. Looking back, he saw that B, C, and D had climbed up from the ravine and were lying on the ground vomiting. Suddenly, he couldn't help but kneel down. Li Zhoguang looked at the four people in front of him, just tell me whether you cheated. No, our behavior is completely in compliance with the rules. It's just that we can't land on the ground, but when we hang on the vertical rock wall of the ravine, it doesn't count as the ground. Then why are you screaming so miserably? Hey, isn't this just to put some psychological pressure on you? Since you lose, just hand over the food. The burly foursome reluctantly handed over 4 portions of food. Strongman A groped on the floor for a while and found a movable brick. After lifting the brick, he pulled the lever below. Immediately there was a stone bridge extending from the exit and connecting with the ground. Before leaving, Li Zhoguang asked the 4 of them, how did you get in? Strongman B sighed, we went to a neighboring country to participate in a bodybuilding competition, and someone replaced all our protein powder with mineral powder from Laxiang Mountain. This thing is contraband in neighboring countries, and we were caught on the airship by a traveling bounty hunter. Didn't you explain? I explained it. The hunter also found out that it was our coach who did it, so our sentence is not long. We can get out after another year. After leaving the exit, there was another long corridor, but this time, the corridor was empty and there was nothing. Even thinking about it with my buttocks, I know there is definitely something wrong, but I still have to keep going, I can only keep going. When he was about a third of the way through the passage, he heard a loud noise coming from behind him. Everyone looked back and saw a spherical boulder falling on the corridor and starting to roll slowly towards them. Only then did Li Zhoguang realize that the corridor under his feet was not flat, but slightly tilted, so the stone balls could roll. And predictably, it will snowball faster and faster. But after the stone ball rolled a certain distance, the floor was slightly dented, and a piece of food fell from the ceiling of the corridor and landed in front of the stone ball. Okay, the intention of this level is also obvious. The stone ball rolling over is an accelerated process. If you start running from the moment the stone ball starts rolling, there will be enough time to run the entire corridor. But the stone ball will trigger the mechanism, and food will fall in front of the stone ball every once in a while. If you want to get food, you can't go too far from the stone ball. But it was okay at first, but when the speed of the stone ball increased, it was impossible to keep a sufficient distance from the stone ball, which was simply asking for death. Therefore, ordinary candidates must calculate the acceleration of the stone ball, their own speed, and the length of the corridor to ensure that they can get more food while ensuring that they are not crushed to death by the stone ball. However, the above situations are only for ordinary candidates. A hissing sound broke through the air, and the crimson touch carved a flat surface on the stone ball, ensuring that the stone ball stopped. Li Zhoguang walked in front, cutting the ceiling along the way and taking out all the food hidden in the ceiling. After walking through the entire corridor, I had 15 more servings of food in my hand. The amount of food for Li Zhoguang and his party increased to 20 portions. During this period, everyone also had something to eat. But what you eat and drink comes with your own water and food. The food obtained here, in this exam, is not only used for eating, but also has the properties of a layer of game tokens. It would be too wasteful to eat it directly. Through the corridor, there is another space. But after entering the space this time, Li Zhoguang was a little shocked. Because there are 8 prisoners in this space, 4 men and 4 women. And they are all acquaintances, the same 4 sisters and 4 strong men whom they met in the previous 2 dimensions. Hey, we meet again. Strong man A waved on the left. Hello. Akiya and her 3 sisters bowed on the right. This space is a completely open venue, with various fitness equipment in the middle. There is a big door in front, which should be the exit. There is a display screen on the door, with a countdown 23 hours 59 minutes and 50 seconds on it, which started when they entered the door. The 4 sisters and the 4 strong men were in the glass rooms on the left and right, respectively. There was only a row of small holes on the glass rooms for ventilation. Hey! What is the game this time? Akiya explained, there is a button in our room. Press the button to get food. We can choose to give you food or not. And you need to stay in this room for 24 hours. If you want to shorten the time, you need to use fitness equipment to exercise. In terms of exercise, about 4 people can offset 2 hours for every hour of exercise. This is easy to understand. If you pass the level quickly enough and have enough time here, you can wait for 24 hours. If you have wasted a lot of time before and you really have no time here, you can choose to exercise to offset the time. You can leave after exercising for about 8 hours continuously. It seems that the fitness equipment here is also specially made. Even if the general candidates have not experienced the previous consumption, it is very difficult to exercise for 8 hours continuously. And it also introduces the influence of the previous 2 games. Li Zhoguang guessed that this should be the last level. Is it the final settlement after careful calculation all the way? The settlement is not only about physical energy consumption and food consumption, but even the previous clearance situation is included in the settlement category. If you have a good relationship with the prisoners during the previous clearance process, you can get sufficient supplies in this level. Li Zhoguang even noticed that Aikiya said that 4 people exercise for 1 hour to offset 2 hours, so what if there are not enough 4 people? If in order to pass the level before, you force your teammates to consume more physical energy and let your teammates fall in front. Or in the previous level, you imitate and throw your teammates into the ravine. At this time, haha, not taking advantage and being fair, this is the real careful calculation. Li Zhoguang smiled helplessly. This Li Bo is really a wonderful person. I'll treat him to a meal when I have a chance in the future, and then put him in a sack and beat him up after the meal. Li Zhoguang and his group, because they brought enough food with them, and they were much stronger than ordinary candidates. They had enough physical strength and food. Then, before Li Zhoguang spoke, the youngest of the 4 sisters had already started to output the buttons frantically. The food that fell was stuffed out by the other 3 sisters through the vents. As for the 4 strong men, they also had their arms full of food. While eating the food, Yi smiled obscenely, "You dance for me, and I will give you food." Hey! Stop throwing it on the opposite side, don't you want to watch them dance? Li Zhoguang just smiled at this, and then started to stroke Huang Shiren, and Huang Shiren squinted comfortably. Seeing this, A slapped B on the head and said, "Why are you dancing? You like dancing so much. When you return to the warehouse, dance for us." B didn't understand and looked at A with a wronged look. A pulled him over and gathered C and D together to whisper. Then the 4 people began to stuff food into the ventilation hole frantically. Alas, this glass house is good in everything, why do we need to leave a ventilation hole? Li Zhoguang stopped them with a smile and said that he had enough water and food, and then started the iron armor. There are enough fitness equipment here, and the iron armor can provide 6 people with exercise at the same time. Seeing the iron armor using the fitness equipment, Aikia suddenly realized that it was no wonder that they could get so many portions of food. However, Wei Chongfeng was a weakling and couldn't do it after an hour. The remaining 3 of Li Zhoguang and 2 sets of iron armor were still continuing. After more than 6 hours, the countdown was finally cleared. Li Zhoguang wiped the non-existent sweat from his forehead and complained, "Hey, it's finally over. Although I'm not very tired, it's really boring to repeat the movements mechanically like this." Xiang Fasai also nodded and said, "It's really boring." Looking at both sides, the 4 strong men have already fallen to the ground and slept soundly. Among the 4 sisters, the youngest Avina was curled up in the arms of the 3rd sister and sleeping, while Ikea was always paying attention to this side. After seeing the countdown reset to 0, she waved to Li Zhoguang, "Brother, this way." Li Zhoguang walked over, "Is there anything else?" Ikea said, "Brother, please come closer." Hearing this, Li Zhoguang also moved a little closer, but the deep red magic power in his body began to boil. Although he did help the other party before, plus this time, they had only met twice. Li Zhoguang was of course a little wary of suddenly letting him approach. Aikia whispered an address. "What is this place? We came here for fraud, and the stolen money is only a small part of it. There is also a large amount of money that I changed into gold and stored in an anonymous vault. The vault has a time limit of 100 years. I put the key and certificate there. Are you here for Avina?" Aikia nodded. "Although we will teach her about the outside world whenever we have time in prison, it is still too limited to live in here all the time. After she gets out, she can survive on what we taught her, but it will definitely be difficult. The 3 of us can't get out anymore. I am willing to give you all our property outside. I only ask you to take care of Avina when you have the energy." Li Zhoguang thought about it and agreed. After saying goodbye to a few people, Li Zhoguang and his party left. Behind the door is another long corridor, but this corridor is not so crowded. It's really just a corridor. After passing through the corridor, we came to a rest room. There are already quite a few people here. It seems that Li Zhoguang and his party didn't pass the level quickly. But what I didn't expect is that Zijia and his party are also here. According to the original plot, they should have passed the level before the deadline. Oh, Dongba has been eliminated by him, that makes sense. Li Zhoguang leaned over and asked Zijia about the level passing process. Only then did they learn that they were still taking the same route, but Dongba was replaced by Hanzhou, the bald ninja. Among all the candidates, Hanzhou was considered a pillar. With him and Killua, it was no problem to take off with the others. The total time for this exam was 72 hours, and there were nearly 2 days before the end of the exam, which meant that everyone had to stay here for 2 more days. Li Zhoguang decided that he must bring a tablet or e-book reader with him on the next mission. Xiang Fasai took out a large tent and a simple cooking table from the storage bag. Li Zhoguang silently stuffed the small tent he brought back. "Brother Fasai, you are really well prepared." Li Zhoguang admired Xiang Fasai as he watched him build a simple shower and toilet next to the tent. Xiang Fasai said proudly, "In our place, the city lord's mansion provides limited positions, and more than 90% of the residents' jobs are related to the area outside the city. In the wild, you have to solve your own food and accommodation, so our outdoor supplies are still very complete." Time passed quickly, and soon it was time for the 3rd exam to end. During this period, there were people who envied the tent and wanted to stay there, but they were all driven away by Li Zhoguang. During this period, there was also a fool who gathered a lot of people, thinking that more people would be useful, but was knocked down to the ground by Li Zhoguang one by one. As usual, with a broken clavicle, you can say goodbye to the subsequent exams. Zijia and his friends also came to borrow the tent. Everyone was an acquaintance, so Li Zhoguang simply lent them his small tent. If 4 people used it, they could take turns to rest. The 72-hour countdown ended, and everyone was able to walk out of the trap tower. After coming out, they found that someone was waiting outside the door. The short and small man, with a mohawk to increase his height, was the warden of the trap tower, Liber. Liber asked someone to bring a blind box and let the candidates take turns to draw lots. The content of the 4th exam was similar to the Battle Royale. The candidates would be sent to a small island, and the number drawn was exactly the exam number of their target. Your own number plate is worth 3 points, your target's number plate is worth 3, and the remaining number plates are worth 1 point. The fourth exam lasts for 1 week, and you need to collect 6 points before the time is up to pass the exam. That is to say, you must defeat at least one person and take the other's number plate to pass the exam. If you encounter a candidate who is possessed by a disaster star, your target is too strong and you can't take the number plate. The one who regards you as a target is also too strong and snatched your number plate from the beginning. Then this means that you have to defeat at least 6 people to pass the exam. The candidates went to the island one after another. The weakest among Li Zhuguang's group was Wei Chongfeng. In order to save his life, Li Zhuguang put his armor on him from the beginning. Although this little defense is useless for a master of mind ability. But the 2 masters of mind ability who took the exam this time will not attack their side. Things are very simple after going to the island. Li Zhuguang and his team are not picky at all, because except for Zijia and his number plates, he can't remember the number plates of others. So when you see someone, you should defeat them. After defeating them, you can see if the number plate is what you need. It's not that they haven't encountered ambushes and sneak attacks, but Qin Daniu and Wei Chongfeng have steel armor, Xiang Fasai has armor magic weapon, and as for Li Zhuguang, he has the protective jade pendant given by Xiang Fasai, so ordinary attacks can't break through the defense. In addition, Xiang Fasai has been using demonic energy to sense the nearby humans all the way. At the end of the 3rd day, except for Xi Suo and Ilmi who didn't want to take the initiative to provoke, and Xiaoji and his group who not only didn't defeat them, but were also given number plates by the kind-hearted Qin Daniu. The rest of the candidates didn't have number plates in their hands. The other candidates knew that Li Zhuguang's group of 4, as well as Xi Suo and Ilmi, were all 1 level stronger than them. So they set their sights on Xiaoji and his group. Even with Killua as a thigh, 2 fists can't beat 4 hands, and they can only flee all over the mountains and plains. But thanks to Xiaoji and the team, his beast-like intuition can always avoid the large army. A week later, only Zijia and his group, Li Zhuguang and his group, Hisoka and Ilmi passed the exam. There were 10 people in total, 1 more than in the original book. The president's airship came to pick them up, and the qualified candidates would take the airship to the trial field for the final exam. During the flight, President Netero decided to interview 10 candidates who could enter the final exam. In the reception room on the airship, President Turo sat casually at the top and asked Li Zhuguang, "Why do you want to become a hunter? With a hunter license, you can enter 90% of the countries that are generally prohibited from entering, and 75% of the restricted areas. You can use 95% of public facilities for free, and you can also log into most websites for free." Li Zhuguang perfunctorily said in a formula. "Ho ho ho, is that so?" Netero knew that Li Zhuguang was not telling the truth, and Li Zhuguang also knew that he could not hide it from Netero, but neither of them cared about such details. "So who do you care about most among the candidates?" "I care about my companions." "Who are the opponents you want to fight the most and the opponents you don't want to fight the most?" "I don't want to fight my companions, and there is no one I want to fight in particular. Fighting without benefit will only lose money." "Is that so? Okay, you can leave now." Li Zhuguang did not leave, but spread his hands helplessly and said, "My companions don't know the language here. If you want to ask them questions, I need to be the translator." Netero nodded, "Okay, in order not to waste your time, ask your friends first." The first person to come in was Qin Daniu. "Why do you want to be a hunter?" "Qin Daniu, Brother Li said we need a hunter license, so I came to take the exam." Translator, "To realize my own life value." "So who do you care about most among the candidates?" Qin Daniu, "No one I care about." Translator, "No one I care about in particular, because everyone is excellent." "So who are the opponents you want to fight the most and the opponents you don't want to fight the most?" Qin Daniu, "There is no one you want to fight or don't want to fight. The opponent is the opponent, there is no need to be picky." Translator, "I will not be careless because the opponent is weak, nor will I be afraid because the opponent is strong. I will treat everyone equally." After Qin Daniu, it was Wei Chongfeng. "Wei Chongfeng, in order to obtain the best quality that the dragon god needs, I followed the high priest here." A translator, "I just want a hunter's license." Wei Chongfeng, "The one I care about most is the high priest. His glory is sacred and cannot be profaned, his wisdom is broad and profound. A translator, he cares about himself the most. Netero, I'm asking about the candidate who cares the most besides himself. A translator, he doesn't care, he cares about himself the most. Netero, okay, let's ask the next question. Wei Chongfeng, the one I don't want to be an enemy of is the high priest. A translator put his hand on his forehead, he said that the other candidates are garbage, and he can beat 10 of this level. Wow, young people are really energetic. The last one to come was Xiang Fasai. He saw that it was the old president he met in the restaurant before, grinned, and waved in a friendly manner. Xiang Fasai, for some special reasons, I need a hunter's license, but don't worry, it's not illegal. Translator, I'm hungry. Xiang Fasai, the candidate you care about most? Probably that cat eyes. He can kill a kid without thinking. He is too dangerous. Translator, why do you have so many questions? Xiang Fasai, I don't want to fight with my companions because it's internal friction. I want to fight with cat eyes. I want to beat him up. Translator, when will dinner be served? After Li Zhouguang and Xiang Fasai left, the side door of the reception room opened. A person walked in. It was a girl with rabbit ears headdress, who was the rabbit in the 12 earthly branches of the Hunter Association, Pion, an ancient document hunter, linguist, and senior translator. Did you find anything? Piorn shook his head. I have never heard the language of those 4 people, but it is clear that they use different languages. Although I don't understand, based on the length of the sentences and the connection of the tone, the number 406 must be translating randomly. It doesn't matter, I'm just asking casually. But you are the top linguist, and 4 languages that you don't even know suddenly appeared. I dare not say that I know all the languages in the world, this is also possible. Then, Piorn seemed to think of something, the last strong man just now is the Warcraft candidate. Ha ha ha, if the information of the evil fox is correct, then it must be him. Should we cancel its qualification for the exam? Our association has never allowed a magic beast to become a hunter. If it becomes a hunter, what will the magic beast hunters in the association think? There is no special requirement in our exam regulations that only humans can register, right? But since it was not mentioned in advance, what reason is there to cancel its qualification for the exam? Well, forget it, as long as you are happy. Ha ha ha, I seem to be a little hungry, when will the meal be served? Why don't you interview the other candidates first? The next day, the airship arrived at a hotel owned by the Hunter Association. The content of the final exam came out, and it was a duel just like in the original work. Still divided into 2 groups, Ilmi, Hisoka, Gon, Leorio, Killua, and Kurapika were in one group, and Li Zhouguang and his group were in one group. Zaiji's group is no different from the original. He only needs to win 1 game to obtain a hunter's license. The first match is between Hisoka and Ilmi. The loser advances to face Gon. The loser of the second round will face Leorio. By analogy, in the end this group will produce a single loser, and the rest will automatically pass the hunter exam. But Li Zhouguang's side is different. The 4 of them will play against each other in pairs in the first round. The winner will advance to the next battle. In the end, their group will select a sole winner, and the rest will be counted as failed exams. The winner of Li Zhouguang's group will have a final showdown with the losers of the other group, and the winner will get a hunter's license. In a duel, you cannot kill anyone, otherwise you will be directly defeated. Unfair. Of course Li Zhouguang would protest against this crazy arrangement. Ho ho ho, these are the rules of the game that I carefully designed. They only have to win 1 game to get a hunter's license, but I have to win 3 times to get a hunter's license. Remember the previous interview on the airship? Actually, some of the words I translated that day were not clear enough. We can re-interview here. No need, those questions were all asked casually by me and have no special meaning. Do you know the difference between your group and the other group? Li Zhouguang made a casual guess. Well, our average strength is stronger here. Hey! Leorio was a little unconvinced when he heard this. Nitro waved his hand and said, no, but you are a group. Aren't Zaija and the others considered a small group? All 4 of them have reasons to become hunters. If I ask them to choose only 1 person to become a hunter, will they choose each other? It's hard to say for others, but Zaija probably wouldn't let him go even to the death. It seems that you have understood that the 4 of you have no desire to become hunters at all. If my guess is correct, you just need a hunter's license. It doesn't matter who gets it. Speaking of unfairness, ask yourself, does your group really need to beat 3 people to pass the exam? Alas! Ginger is still spicy with age. Hoo ho ho, it seems that everyone has no doubts, then I declare that the game has officially begun. The competition took place in the hotel's banquet hall. The banquet hall was spacious enough. In order to save time, the banquet hall was simply divided into 2 parts, and the 2 groups competed at the same time. But in the end, it was just Zyja's group duel. The Nitro division is correct, everyone only needs to win once to get a hunter's license. Because in Li Zhuguang's group, who will join the battle as the final winner can only be decided through internal discussion, and there is no need to fight at all. The last person selected was Li Zhuguang, not because he thought he was stronger than Qin Dainyu and Xiong Fasai, but because he was sure that he was not as kind as them. Then Li Zhuguang stood in front of Hisoka as the final contestant. Gan, it's you. If I had known it was you, I would have sent Brother Fa Cai here. Li Zhuguang held his forehead and shook his head. Hisoka licked his lips excitedly, I came here to fight you, but I gave up all the way. Since it is an exam, it doesn't count as me taking the initiative to pester you. Li Zhuguang looked around, looking at the other group of candidates standing at the edge of the field. Except for Ilmi and Killua who were clean, the other 3 looked bruised and swollen. Well, given and admit defeat, the addiction is still enough, you are worthy of it. Li Zhuguang moved his joints. It seemed that he could only fight once. After all, passing the exam and obtaining a hunter's license would be the best result. If you fail the exam, although there are ways to obtain it later, many troubles will arise out of thin air. Totally unnecessary. Although Hisoka's combat skills and combat IQ surpassed Li Zhuguang by several blocks, and he also had the ability to read. But Li Zhuguang felt that occasionally excessive use of crimson magic power was not a big problem. During the exam before, I chose to use the enemy Haka family to contain Zasuo instead of swarming with Xiong Fasai and Qin Dainyu. The reason is because there is no one among them who is known for their speed, and successfully completing the exam is the first priority. If Hisoka knows that he is outmatched and wants to escape. With the combination of flexible love and frivolous illusion, Li Zhuguang and the others may not be able to stop him. But now that the fighting location is limited to 1 room, Li Zhuguang feels that he can't give it a try. The staff gave the order and the battle officially began. Hisoka jumped back, flipped his palms, and several playing cards appeared in his palms. His arms flew up, and the playing cards in his hands were divided into several rounds, shooting straight or curved towards Li Zhuguang. Li Zhuguang tapped his toes on the ground and used snake stealth. His looming figure dodged the poker shot by Hisoka. Although he dodged easily, he did not relax his vigilance. From the moment Hisoka launched the attack, he felt some pressure on him. Hisoka must have used telekinesis. Sure enough, when Hisoka saw that all the playing cards were empty, he did not rush to launch the next round of attacks, but instead pulled back with both hands, as if he was pulling some kind of invisible rope. The poker cards that Li Zhuguang had just dodged also changed their flight trajectory and flew back. This is exactly one of Hisoka's 2 abilities, stretchable love. It can turn the energy of the mind into the same properties as chewing gum, and it has both sticky and elastic properties, which can stick to the enemy or objects. The longer the energy is stretched, the greater the force of the retraction, but if the energy leaves Hisoka's body and stretches more than 10 meters, it will break. Li Zhuguang dodged again and dodged the poker cards that flew back, and the poker cards returned to Hisoka's hands. Why is the number of poker cards in his hand wrong? Hisoka showed a cruel smile, hooked his little fingers with both hands, and Li Zhuguang felt his shoulders shake. It was 2 poker cards that hit his shoulders and were blocked by the protective jade pendant. The 2 poker cards were transparent, and they were only revealed after being blocked by the jade pendant, and were caught by Li Zhuguang. This is probably another of Hisoka's Nen abilities, flimsy illusions, which can turn chi into skins with various textures. By adding imagination to one's own chi, one can reproduce all textures and appearances, but can only imitate things as thin as paper, that is, it is like a high-quality color photocopy, but once it is touched, it will be exposed. Just now, Hisoka should have covered the 2 poker cards with a layer of flimsy illusions, and when the poker cards were shot out, he turned them transparent. Take advantage of Li Zhuguang's relaxation after dodging the second round of attacks to launch a sneak attack. Xisuo didn't know what had blocked his sneak attack, but it didn't stop him from getting more excited. You are indeed extraordinary. Even among many apples, you are the sweetest one. Alas, it seems that my training is not good enough. If it were Danu and Fa Caige, they would be able to find the discord just by listening to the voice. Li Zhoguang shook his head self-deprecatingly, a nouveau riche is a nouveau riche. Even if I have repeatedly reminded myself, I am still inflated. Red flames began to slowly emerge on Li Zhuguang's body. The people who had never seen Li Zhuguang's skills at the scene were shocked, and even the few people who had mastered the ability of mind frowned deeply, because what appeared on Li Zhuguang's body now was definitely not mind energy. Xi Suo shot out dozens of poker cards again, without paying attention to the accuracy at all. When Li Zhuguang held the previous 2 poker cards in his hand, Xi Suo had attached the mind energy to his body. Now, as long as the other end of the mind energy was attached to the flying poker cards, those poker cards would be attracted and fly towards Li Zhuguang. The crimson touch appeared out of nowhere and wrapped Li Zhuguang like a mummy. The poker cards could not penetrate the crimson touch. As the flames sputtered, all the mental energy attached to his body and the poker cards stuck to his body were shattered. The tentacles wrapped around Li Zhuguang's head loosened, revealing his face. You can't be the only one with special abilities, right? Now, let's play the second round. Standing at the edge of the field, Karapika clenched his fists, and he didn't notice that his nails had scratched his palms. He stared blankly at Li Zhuguang's red eyes that were flashing red. Is this, the fiery red eyes? Although he didn't know what was going on with Li Zhuguang's current appearance, Xi Suo's keen perception still made him feel alarmed. The tentacles wrapped around Li Zhuguang's head again, leaving only a small gap in his eyes for him to observe the outside world. The toes exerted force, and the tentacles wrapped around his legs also assisted in exerting force. A big hole was blown out of the floor under Li Zhuguang's feet, and he was instantly shot away. This is the auxiliary exoskeleton use of the Crimson Touch that Li Zhuguang has researched. So fast! Xi Suo was shocked by Li Zhuguang's speed, but his hands were not slow either. With a hook of his finger, he let retractable love pull him aside. The battle idea was right, but it was a pity that the battlefield was too small and there was no shelter around. 4 more tentacles appeared around Li Zhuguang, winding and shooting out, like a venomous snake flying and swooping down on its prey. Although Qin Daniu suggested that Li Zhuguang should not take shortcuts when practicing boxing, he couldn't care so much when facing the enemy. The tentacles approached Xi Suo and used the spirit snake out of the cave. 4 tentacles attacked at the same time, like 2 warriors joining forces. Xi Suo hooked his fingertips and wanted to use the same trick again, dragging himself away with his mind. But the spirit snake out of the cave is the starting move of Snake Shadow Fist and the mother frame of Snake Shadow Fist. Its biggest feature is that it can be connected to any move of Snake Shadow Fist afterwards. The 4 tentacles missed the first attack and changed their moves to snake coiled around the branch and entangled Xi Suo in 4 directions. Xi Suo saw that all the retreat routes were blocked and had no time to dodge, so he used his mind to strengthen the poker cards and shot at one of the tentacles. The poker cards that he specially strengthened with the strengthening mind energy, as he expected, cut off one of the tentacles and nailed it to the ground without losing its momentum. Excellent! In addition to strengthening the poker cards with his mind, Hisoka also attached stretchable love to them. With a hook of his finger, he was about to fly away with the poker cards as an anchor. Li Zhuguang shook his head. The people here are used to fighting with opponents who are also mind users, and many of their responses come from judging others by their own standards. However, Li Zhuguang's ability is not a mind ability. If the mind ability is broken, it will take some tricks to condense it again. Li Zhuguang used Crimson Magic, which is infinite and boundless. Just when Hisoka was about to break away from the encirclement of the other 3 tentacles, the broken tentacle flashed red and reconnected. Not only did it block Hisoka's retreat, but it also cut off his mind that was pulling him. Hisoka was shocked. It's bad. 4 tentacles wrapped around his limbs, making it impossible for him to break free. Li Zhuguang's voice came from below, I've caught you. Xi Suo wanted to burst out his mind to break free, but he didn't know what kind of energy was attached to the 4 tentacles. The little bit of mind he gathered was crushed by the red flame. Before he could make any further moves, he was pulled towards Li Zhuguang by the tentacles. The tentacles wrapped around Li Zhuguang's arms were surging with energy, tightening and gathering momentum like springs. At the same time, he clenched his fists and moved his strength around his body. When Xi Suo was pulled in front of him, the power came from his feet and penetrated through each joint. Li Zhuguang's hands seemed to have turned into 2 soft venomous snakes, swaying in the air, revealing layers of illusory snake shadows. The snake shadow seemed to slowly but quickly encircle Xisuo, without a trace of breaking air, as if it was gently brushing past. But Xisuo smelled the breath of death. This was the killer move Snake Dance Spring Breeze in Snake Shadow Fist. Originally, Li Zhuguang's cultivation was not enough to use this move, but with the help of the Crimson Touch exoskeleton, the impossible could be made possible. When the snake shadow really touched Xisuo's body, a sharp explosion sounded immediately. Even though Xisuo tried his best to resist with his mind energy, he was beaten to the ground by Li Zhuguang's fist whip in an instant. In just a blink of an eye, Xisuo was like a bursting tomato, with a large amount of blood splashing around him. Qin Dania frowned slightly when he saw this scene. Although he had seen many warriors from the Phantom Snake Hall take action before, he still felt that killing people was not enough, and this move was too cruel. Li Zhuguang stopped after only throwing a dozen punches, not because he was out of strength. If necessary, he could use Snake Dance Spring Breeze to swing 100 punches and whips in a few breaths, like 100 snakes biting the body, taking away all the flesh on Xisuo's body, leaving only the skeleton. But he still remembered that he could not kill anyone in this exam. If he killed someone, he would be disqualified from the exam. Li Zhuguang reached out and lifted Xisuo's head to make sure he was not unconscious. Give up. Haha. Xisuo showed a cold smile and said it concisely. I can't read, but I know that the mind energy comes from my own life energy. I have been entangled with you for a while with the Crimson Touch. Do you feel it? My crimson magic is destroying your muscles all the time, wearing down your tendons and bones, burning your blood, and decaying your marrow. Every second you delay, you will be weaker. If you delay for a while, you will have to lie in bed for the rest of your life and will never be able to fight with others again. By the way, my ability is not mind, even if you find a mind remover, it will be useless. Xisuo felt his physical condition slightly. This man did not lie. Hisoka's face darkened, and he squeezed out 3 words from his teeth, I give up. The 287th Hunter exam ended here, and the result was satisfactory. Except for Hisoka, everyone has a bright future. Xiang Fasai smacked his lips with satisfaction. He also wanted to beat up Mao Maoan, but unfortunately the exam was over. If he rushed up to beat someone again, he would be no different from a gangster who was looking for trouble. If others knew about it, where would he, Director Xiang, put his face? After the exam, everyone got a hunter license. Ilmi wanted to forcibly take Killua back to the Zaldik house in Kukolo Mountain. Killua shouted that he was a bounty hunter and wanted to bring Ilmi, the perverted killer, to justice. At the same time, Ilmi used a rope to bounce back bring him to justice, and the whole person was tied up like a caterpillar on Ilmi's back. Before leaving, he was still squirming on Ilmi's back, loudly inviting Zyja to visit Zaldik's house. Before he shouted a few words, he was silent. Oh, it turned out that Ilmi blocked his mouth too. Li Zhuguang looked through the hunter license in his hand, and finally got the return ticket. Zyja walked up to Li Zhuguang and asked, Brother Li, what are your plans next? Li Zhuguang thought about his plan and said, I will probably stay in the Hunter Association for a while, then go to Yukixin City to do some things, and finally go to Whale Island, and then I will go home. What about you? Zyja scratched his head, Hehe, I still want to go to Greedy Island to find gold in the game, but I don't have that much money. I asked Killua about how to make money quickly before, and I plan to go to the Sky Arena to make money next. Li Zhuguang hesitated for a while, and still said to Zyja, I went to Yukixin City for the matter of Greedy Island. If my matter can be done, then Greedy Island will be broken into in a short time. If you plan to go to the Sky Arena to make money, it should be too late. Ah! What should I do? Zyja was so anxious that he jumped up and down, but he didn't let Li Zhuguang give up his plan. Li Zhuguang thought for a while, remember Kate? That gloomy long-haired white man who looks like Jin, who saved you from the fox bear when you were a child. Xiaoji recalled, I remember Kate, who is Jin. It's not important. What's important is that you can spend a ring to entrust Kate to take you to see Jin. Others may not know where Jin is, but Kate should be able to contact him. Thank you, Brother Li, what do I have to pay for this information? Li Zhuguang touched his pocket, took out a gold ingot and handed it to Xiaoji, before you go to find Kate, help me escort someone to Whale Island. Hi. Brother Li, I'm going to take the first step. Xiaojia stood by the porthole of the airship and waved to Li Zhoguang outside. Avina, who was standing next to him, seemed a little scared because she was riding an airship for the first time, but she still waved her little hand vigorously towards Li Zhoguang in the same way. Li Zhoguang looked at the airship flying higher and higher, waving goodbye until he couldn't see the face in the porthole clearly, then turned to look at the person walking behind him. You? No. But your eyes. Li Zhoguang activated the crimson magic power. Take another look. Karapika shook his head. It's similar, but not. Li Zhoguang thought for a while, took out a pen and paper from his storage bag, and started writing. After a while, he handed the paper filled with crooked symbols to Karapika. This is spider information. Karapika looked at the information in his hand and his eyes immediately turned red. Hisoka. Stop yelling. Hisoka hadn't joined the group when the Koluda tribe was exterminated. And he only joined the group to fight with the leader of the Phantom Troop. Speaking of which, the two of them can still cooperate. Karapika bowed 90 degrees, thank you. Li Zhoguang waved his hand, forget it, just treat it as a good relationship. After saying that, Li Zhoguang turned and left. Li Zhoguang and his party of 4 were sitting in the meeting room of the Hunter Association, looking at the 2 people in front of them. Menchi clasped his hands on his chest and crossed his legs. I heard you were looking for us. Li Zhoguang stared at Menchi and said strangely, I'm looking for Boera, why did you come with me? Bang! Menchi slapped the table, Boera and I are partners, of course we will act together. Although Boera promised you to take on a mission for free, you are too narrow-minded. Boera is so honest, I want to help him check it. Li Zhoguang waved his hand impatiently, it's up to you. The task I want to entrust can be completed in the Hunter Association. You don't have to go out. It's very simple. What mission? Help us enlighten us. Is it that simple? It's that simple. You know the dangers of using external force to open your mind, right? I already know it well. Menchi raised his eyebrows, well, this is not an excessive request. I will help you reluctantly. Li Zhoguang looked at her with a dead smile, I'm looking for Boera. When Menchi heard Li Zhoguang's words, he immediately became furious, I'm willing to help you, but how dare you be picky? Li Zhoguang spread his hands as a matter of course, after all, we had some unpleasantness before. Of course I need to be cautious about such an important thing. The blood vessels on Menki's forehead bulged, you trust Boera so much? But you suspect that I will have a hand in this kind of thing. Didn't you just say that Boera is more honest, so I choose the honest person. Hunters Association Lounge. In the end, Li Zhoguang took off his shirt and sat in front of Menchi. Because Boera himself said it, he was of the strengthening type, while Menchi was of the changing type, and Menchi was better at the delicate work of reading. Moreover, as a gourmet hunter, Menchi often needs to deal with some troublesome ingredients. His telekinesis ability is much more sophisticated than that of ordinary telekinesis ability users. Boera said firmly. Okay, concentrate. Menchi interrupted Boera's words, put his hands on Li Zhoguang's back, and felt it silently. You can't tell with the clothes on, but I didn't expect her body to be quite strong, wait. Menki's eyes narrowed and he asked with some confusion, you are not a human being. I guarantee with my personality that I am human. Why do you have so many more sperm pores than ordinary humans? The number of sperm pores on your back alone is more than a person's entire body combined. I am a minority. That wouldn't be such an exaggeration. What do you know? The Judundu tribe, let alone sperm holes, have more holes in their bodies than normal people. Okay, you're the only one with the most lies. Concentrate, I'm going to start. Don't pity me, just come here. Li Zhoguang tried his best to contain his crimson magic power. Then, he felt something slowly covering the surface of his skin, and a fine pinprick sensation began to appear. Damn, why is this man's sperm hole so tight? Menchi carefully used his mind energy to impact Li Zhoguang's sperm hole, but found that it could not be opened. Gradually the intensity increased, but to no avail. At that moment, Menki's heart was filled with excitement, and he twisted his thoughts into one stream, bundled them into a very thin needle, and stabbed it hard into a sperm hole. As soon as the reading needle was inserted, a violent beam of red flames spurted out from the reading hole. Menchi immediately flew back and jumped away, avoiding the jet of flames. Li Zhoguang felt a pain in his back and began to leak air, and what leaked out was crimson magic power. The crimson magic that filled his body was expelled, and Li Zhoguang only felt a sense of relief. And as one sperm pore opened, he gradually became aware of other sperm pores on his body. Open! Inspiring the crimson magic power, it impacted the sperm hole from the inside out, much more efficiently than Men Qi. The pores opened one after another, and Li Zhuguang's whole body began to spray red flames around him. It looked horrifying, as if it was covered with fireworks and lit all at once. But for Li Zhuguang, he had never been so relaxed before. This was the first time he mobilized so much crimson magic without turning into a red tank. Because before the crimson magic began to strengthen itself, it was ejected at high speed. The whole body was soft, very relaxed, very comfortable, making people just want to lie down and have a good sleep. Quickly gather your energy. You will lose your energy like this. Men Qi shouted from the side. It was really disappointing. Li Zhoguang certainly knew that his life energy was also lost along with the crimson magic, but it was too comfortable, and he had enough life energy. Li Zhoguang waved his hand at Men Qi, and ejected 2 more waves fiercely, and then began to gather the flow of energy. Most people feel difficult when they start to read, because before this, there has never been energy in the body, and it is more difficult to control it for the first time. However, for Li Zhoguang, he had ridden the fierce wild horses of crimson magic for quite some time, and now he had changed to a docile domestic horse, which was easy to tame. Soon, Li Zhuguang's life essence was bound to his body's surface and flowed slowly. Crimson magic did not crush the life essence, because this essence was the source of Li Zhuguang's life energy. If crimson magic and life essence were not compatible, Li Zhuguang would have died long ago. Genius! Boela and Menkai had never seen anyone who could open his mind so easily. Then, Menkai brought an instrument and took the patch to stick on Li Zhuguang's body. What is this? Li Zhuguang asked curiously as he watched Menkai stick the patch on himself. Men Qi explained, this is an instrument to test the properties of your mind energy. Li Zhuguang made a black question mark expression, isn't it to put a leaf on a glass of water to test it? Men Qi curled his lips, that is the water-seeing style of Xinyuan Lu, a test method developed by ancient sages. Although Xinyuan Lu disciples are still using it now, it is more ritualistic than practical. Such a crude test method is not comparable to modern instruments. Okay, you have a point. Li Zhuguang thought about it and let Men Qi do it. Men Qi took the document printed by the instrument and read it, change system 100%, strengthening system 83%, materialization system 85%, release system 61%, operation system 43%, and special system 10%. You are the same as me, you are a change system, your qualifications are really good, even the special system has a 10% success rate. Most people's special system is 0%. Then, Men Qi opened the mind for Qin Daniu, who is a strengthening system. Then it was Xiang Fasai. Men Qi put his hands on Xiang Fasai's back, no, there is something on you that blocks my mind. Li Zhuguang thought for a moment and signaled Xiang Fasai to remove his disguise. Xiang Fasai took off the necklace on his neck, revealing his true self. Men Qi was so scared that he ran back and took out a kitchen knife, Warcraft. Relax, the president knows about this, but he didn't stop Brother Fasai from taking the exam. Li Zhuguang didn't care whether Netero knew about it or not. Anyway, since Xiang Fasai was exposed to other hunters, he would know it sooner or later. That old lunatic. Don't say that about the president, he is just more tolerant than ordinary people. Li Zhuguang said as a matter of course, and Brother Fasai is much more polite than you. What did you say? Look at you. In order to avoid being accused by Li Zhuguang of being a man of broken promises, Men Qi reluctantly opened her mind for Brother Fasai. She had never thought that one day she would open her mind for a demon beast. Finally, it was Wei Chongfeng. Well, he was a bit weak. It took him a long time to control the flow of his energy, and he almost fainted. The result of opening his mind. Li Zhuguang, transformation system. Qin Daniu, strengthening system. Xiang Fasai, release system. Wei Chongfeng, trait system. Li Zhuguang stared at Wei Chongfeng for a while. Good guy, if we classify according to the personality classification method, I am a capricious madman, and you are an individualist with leadership qualities, right? Wei Chongfeng didn't know what he had done wrong, which made the chief priest unhappy, so he could only shrink back and stand aside with his head lowered. Li Zhoguang looked at him for a while, turned his head, and saw Men Qi standing in front of him staring at him. What advice do you have? Let's not talk about that demon beast. Why do the number and location of your 3 sperm holes differ? The genetic genes of our nation are quite different. If you don't want to talk about it, forget it. After opening the mind, Li Zhoguang and his group stayed in the association for a few more days, practicing basic mind under the guidance of Menkai. Li Zhoguang completed the development of mind energy in a few days, further solidifying his reputation as a genius. After being tested as a transformation type, Li Zhoguang had a general idea. Transformation type mind users are good at converting their mind energy into other characteristics or properties. For example, Hisoka, he gave his mind energy elasticity and stickiness, just like chewing gum. For example, Killua, in the future plot, he converted the nature of his mind energy into electric current. The reason why Li Zhoguang completed the practice of mind so quickly was because he was too familiar with the attributes he gave to his mind energy. That is crimson magic. Of course, this was not a brain seizure, but the crimson magic in his body now, in the final analysis, still belonged to Psi Zone. When it was in his body, he could only barely control it, and could not do it as he wished. Before, when he practiced other techniques, whenever he produced a little alien energy, it would be crushed by the crimson magic, and the practice could not proceed at all. But now it is different. Li Zhoguang called the crimson magic transformed by his own mind energy the crimson magic troll version, just as the emperor among beggars is still a beggar, and the troll in the crimson magic is still crimson magic. It's just that these trolls absolutely obey Li Zhoguang's orders. When Li Zhoguang was practicing the basic cultivation method of the human race brought by Xiong Fasai, he found that the cultivated true qi first appeared in the danshan. Then Li Zhoguang let the trolls surround the danshan, and the external crimson magic would not attack because it sensed that the trolls were of the same kind. And because the trolls completely obeyed Li Zhoguang's orders, they would not take the initiative to crush the cultivated true qi. Furthermore, it can even coat the outer layer of qi like a coating to complete the circulation of qi. When Li Zhoguang stumbled and completed a circulation, his eyes were filled with tears. Which man has never had a dream of cultivating the truth? Alas, it is too hard for me. Men Qi squinted his eyes and stared at Li Zhoguang. He just felt that this man was a little crazy. He just cultivated faster, why was he so self-satisfied? A week later, Li Zhoguang threw the soup ingredients he had asked for from Xiong Fasai to Men Qi. This is different from the one from Buela, but the raw materials are still the kind that cannot be obtained through conventional means. Men Qi weighed the bag of ingredients in his hand and asked absent-mindedly, "Are you leaving now?" "Yes, we have been here for quite some time, and we have probably mastered the basics of mind ability. The rest can be practiced by ourselves." Men Qi pouted, "Isn't that polite young man still a little short of the heat?" Li Zhoguang glared at Wei Chongfeng angrily, making Wei Chongfeng nervous again, not knowing what he had done wrong to anger the chief priest. The last one has no human rights. It is impossible for him to delay other people's time. At most, the 3 of us will take turns to tutor him later. You said you would go home after you finish your work. Yes, after all, I have been out for so long, it is time to go back. Where is your home? It is a secret place for the outside world. Outsiders cannot enter. Well, let's not talk so much. The airship is ready to take off. Thank you for these days. Goodbye. Men Qi muttered softly, "Big idiot." Li Zhoguang pretended not to hear clearly, "What did you say?" "I said I wish you a safe journey. Then I also wish you a prosperous food fortune and see you again if we are lucky. Goodbye." Li Zhoguang is not a fool, and Men Qi is not an old hand. After so many days of getting along, even Qin Dainyu and Buela have seen some signs. But the old saying is good, if you don't have the intention to taste honey, don't climb the flower branch. The airship is very slow. Not to mention compared with the airplane in Li Zhoguang's world, it may even be inferior to the high-speed rail. But the good thing is that it can ignore the terrain and fly in a straight line, which saves a lot of time compared to ordinary cars. Li Zhoguang and his friends are not short of money, and the airship tickets they bought are also the best packages, and they are located on the top floor of the airship cabin. In addition to the single bedroom, there are also restaurants, bars, rest areas, and reception areas. So even if the journey is a bit long, it is not boring. However, what impressed Li Zhoguang was that since he learned the ability of mind reading, Wei Chongfeng has been practicing in the bedroom except for eating and resting, which is very rare. A few days later, the airship landed in Yokixan City. Li Zhoguang came to an old building on the outskirts of the city according to the information given by Akiya before. Entering the building, going down the stairs to the basement, standing under the third light, carefully cut the floor under his feet with the crimson touch, dug up the soil, and dug out a box. The box was not locked, and it contained the token and key of the vault. After that, Li Zhoguang came to the largest bank in Yokixan City and prepared to open the vault. But when he was going through the procedures at the counter, a sinful big hand reached into his trouser pocket. The result was of course that he was tied up by Li Zhoguang with the crimson touch on the spot, and started a righteous beating with Qin Dainyu and others. "Oh, stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Please, oh, stop hitting me in the face. I am also a hunter, hiss, I came here specifically to find you, if you don't believe me, feel my trouser pocket, there is my license." Li Zhoguang put the man down half-believingly and took out the man's license. After confirming the authenticity, Li Zhoguang dismissed the bank security guards who surrounded him. VIP room of the bank. "Bali, right? Tell me, as a professional hunter, why do you come to steal my things?" Bali said a little aggrievedly, "Hiss, I just want to take your hunter license and tease you. Is this how local hunters greet each other? It's so rude." Bali quickly denied, "No, I came here to find you." Li Zhoguang didn't quite believe the other party's words, "Do we know each other?" Bali explained, "Generally, the association will arrange old hunters to guide the newly licensed hunters. My team happened to have a mission here, and you happened to come here, so I took the initiative to take on the task of guiding you. I didn't expect. Who would have thought that not long after the hunter exam, he learned the ability of reading? Not only can he do it, but he is also very skilled. Not only can he do it, but even his companions can do it. This kind of person still needs guidance? He can guide me." Of course, Bali only dared to complain in his heart. Li Zhoguang asked in confusion, "After the exam, I entrusted Menkai and Boela to guide our mind ability. Didn't you receive the notice?" "Ah? I'm not here." Hunter Association. Boela, who was browsing the task list, suddenly called Menkai, "Hey, Menkai, why do I see Li Zhuguang's name on the list of guides for novice hunters? Didn't you report the situation to the association?" "What? Didn't you report it?" Li Zhoguang remembered that both Menkai and Boela were carefree and thick-skinned, and shook his head helplessly, "I guess it was a misunderstanding. Sorry, I wasted your time." "Is it as simple as wasting time?" Bali smiled and waved his hand, "It's okay, anyway, my mission hasn't started yet." Li Zhoguang asked casually, "What mission?" Bali thought for a while, "This mission doesn't need to be kept secret, so it's okay to tell you. It's a long-term mission commissioned by the rich man Bartra to clear the Greed Island. It just so happens that this mission is in urgent need of manpower. I think you are quite capable. If you are interested, you might as well join our team to complete the mission together." Li Zhoguang grinned and said, "Isn't this a coincidence?" Li Zhoguang handed the key and token to the teller and successfully entered the vault. The reserves were not bad, about 10 tons. Li Zhoguang said to the other 3 people, "There are about 10 tons of gold here. The 4 of us take 2 tons each, and leave the rest to Avina, okay?" This gold was originally earned by Li Zhoguang. For them, it was a windfall. Li Zhoguang had no problem with how to distribute it. Xiang Fasai gave Wei Chongfeng a storage bag, and the 4 of them each put their own share. The remaining gold was sold directly to the bank by Li Zhoguang at the market price of the day. A special fund was opened, and the money was transferred to the account of Zija's aunt, Mit, every month before Avina came of age. Avina can only use this fund after she comes of age. That's right, Li Zhoguang entrusted Avina to Mit. After all, she has rich experience in raising children and has a good character. As for the account, this unimportant information can be found by logging on to the intelligence website with a hunter's license. However, Li Zhoguang still called to inform Mit of this matter, so that she would not dare to use the extra money in her account for no reason. After finishing his work, Li Zhoguang walked to the rest area and said to the bored Bali, "I'm done with my work, let's go." "Okay, I just called my brother, and I'll take you there now." Bali nodded, stood up and led the way. Bali is a hunter of the Jwezagila team. They are employed by Bharat and have been attacking Greed Island for a long time. Because of Bharat's strong support and Jwezagila strength, it can be said that among the existing players, the Jwezagila team is the player group closest to breaking through. The group came to a high-end hotel in Yokiksan city. It seems that Bharat has been staying here recently. After entering a luxury suite, Li Zhoguang met Bharat. Bharat looked weak, but when he saw Li Zhoguang coming in, he still pulled himself together and said gently, "I heard from Mr. Bali that you have a walkthrough for Greed Island." Li Zhoguang nodded and said confidently, "Yes, but I don't provide walkthroughs for obtaining common cards. This information is too worthless. I only provide walkthroughs for obtaining rare cards, including walkthroughs for obtaining card No 002, one ping of coastline." Jwezagila looked sideways. He had gone through so much trouble but couldn't even find out a bit of information about card No 002, and didn't even know the specific name of the card. He didn't expect that the man in front of him could actually provide a way to obtain it directly. Li Zhoguang handed the summarized walkthrough to Jwezagila, who frowned after taking it. This man's handwriting is really ugly. Bharat was a little surprised. "We haven't agreed on the price yet, and you just gave me the strategy." Li Zhoguang shrugged, "You are quite open and honest, I believe you will not treat me unfairly." Bharat smiled bitterly, "You finally gave me a difficult problem. Let's put it this way, I have been buying the memory cards for 50 billion ringgis. If your information is confirmed to be true, I will give you 30 billion ringgis, how about it?" Li Zhoguang nodded, "It's fair, and I don't want cash, then please change it to gold for me." Bharat readily agreed. In the following days, Li Zhoguang stayed in the hotel, waiting for Jwezagila's team to verify the authenticity of the information, but he didn't expect to wait for two uninvited guests. In Li Zhuguang's suite, Li Zhoguang, Xiang Fasai and Qin Daniu surrounded the two people in the middle. And Wei Chongfeng guarded the only exit. Li Zhoguang glanced at Hisoka, who was wrapped in bandages like a mummy, and Maki Komakini, the third member of the Phantom Troop. After recalling Maki's intelligence, Li Zhoguang was very sure that her position in the brigade was an auxiliary staff member. If she really started fighting, she would not be as good as Hisoka. Li Zhoguang was the first to ask, "What can I do for you?" Maki bowed slightly, "He is our brigade's new member, Hisoka. He came to seek treatment recently because of a ligament rupture. I recognized that his injury was caused by you, the elder, so I brought him here to ask about the details." Only then did Li Zhoguang realize that Maki had wrapped his thoughts around Hisoka's neck. No wonder he was so honest. Elder? It seems that the identity given to him by the train this time is the elder of Meteor Street. After thinking for a while, Li Zhoguang said calmly, "Ignorance is not a crime. If you want to treat him, then treat him." Maki nodded, and then asked, "There is one more thing. The Hunter Association contacted the Elder Council before, asking if you are from Meteor Street. Because you were not contacted, there was no immediate reply. How do you think we should reply to the Hunter Association? Reply according to the actual situation." Li Zhoguang had no idea about the specific situation of his identity. Meteor Street could reply however it wanted. After receiving Li Zhuguang's instructions, Maki bowed and left. Alas, it was hasty. If I had known earlier, I should have confirmed my identity first. If I had known that I had such an identity, I would not have worked so hard to take the Hunter exam. The Phantom Troop belongs to the Meteor Street camp. Then, if I give the information to Karapika, will it be considered as cutting off my own arm? Forget it, I'm leaving soon, and I don't want to think so much. A few days later, Zetsuzera's team made a breakthrough in Greed Island and confirmed the authenticity of Li Zhuguang's information. Bharat readily fulfilled his promise, and the four people's storage bags were filled a lot more. Since the matter was settled, the four of them set out on their return journey. Unfortunately, Whale Island is a small place, and there is no direct airship, so it can only be reached by boat. However, the sightseeing cruise ship that Li Zhoguang and his friends took a regular route, so they did not have to experience the exciting journey of the Hunter exam again. When they returned to the small hotel in mid on Whale Island, they saw Avina helping in the lobby. She stayed in the trap tower all year round and had never been in contact with the outside world. Once she was free, the smile on her face never stopped. No matter what she did, she would find it interesting and happy. Seeing Li Zhoguang and the other four come in, she put down the small tray in her hand and ran quickly to the door. "Big brother, see you again." Li Zhoguang rubbed her hair, are you used to it here? Used? I have met a lot of people these days, including Aunt Mit, Brother Zyja, Grandma and Uncle come from the neighbor's house. I will meet more people tomorrow. Li Zhoguang smiled and said nothing. In a place like the Trap Tower, it is estimated that her 3 sisters never let her contact with other prisoners. Maybe she has only talked to her 3 sisters since she could remember. Get used to it. This is where you will live from now on. What about my sisters? Li Zhoguang thought for a moment and said to her, let Zyja teach you how to exercise and how to fight. If one day you feel that you are strong enough, go and take the hunter exam. As long as you become a bounty hunter and apply to guard the Trap Tower, you can see your sisters again. But don't be stubborn. You must cherish your life. Your current life is the result of a great price paid by your sisters. Avina nodded, not quite understanding, and tried to remember every word Li Zhoguang said in her heart. Stayed in Mit's small hotel for one night. The next morning, everyone said goodbye to Mit and Avina and set off to return to the train parked on Whale Island. When Wang Shiyun was called out from Mit's hotel yesterday, Li Zhoguang learned from the side that Wang Shiyun had been eating and playing during this period. Anyway, her food and accommodation were taken care of by Mit, so she lived comfortably even though they didn't speak the language. Li Zhoguang didn't say anything about this, but after everyone went to bed, Wei Chongfeng privately found Wang Shiyun. Seeing that the two of them almost starved to death and supported each other during the days before, Wei Chongfeng told Wang Shiyun that her current behavior was self-destruction. In the process of completing the task, because Qin Daniu and Xiang Fasai were easier to talk to, Wei Chongfeng asked the two about the previous task. In addition, he had also experienced a task with the group, and now he has a certain understanding of the tasks issued by Lord Dragon God. This task is just a special case, and there will not be a safe place for people to hide in every task. Even if you carry food with you before every mission, you can hide near the Dragon God's Dharma body. But what if the Master Priest takes too long to complete the mission? What if there is no supply around the Dragon God's Dharma body? Only by becoming stronger, being accepted by the Master Priest, and sharing the Master Priest's worries, can you continue under the leadership of the Master Priest. But after listening to Wei Changfeng's words, Wang Shiyun just refused, saying that she was just a weak woman and she couldn't do anything like fighting and killing. Wei Chongfeng could only shake his head and leave in the end. As the saying goes, good words can't persuade the damned ghost. He has already persuaded her, and it's up to her whether she listens or not. After returning to the train, Li Zhoguang handed in his hunter license and completed the mission. Please select the task reward. Selection countdown, 30:00. 1. Strengthen the body once. 2. Increase lifespan by 10%. 3. Strengthen the designated skill once. 4. Obtain random skills in the task world. 5. Obtain random items in the task world. When choosing the enhanced reward, Li Zhoguang chose to strengthen his mind ability without hesitation. The mind ability that would have taken a long time to mature was instantly formed under the enhancement of the train. Its characteristics are exactly the same as what Li Zhoguang had imagined at the beginning, as if he had cultivated it himself, but the train compressed the process into an instant. The mind ability that Li Zhoguang cultivated is called Trickster, with a total of 3 abilities. The first is wearing red shoes, which can infiltrate the crimson magic power transformed by his own mind energy into other energies, deceiving the crimson magic power to avoid being strangled. The second is Go Yiseo, which can use a little bit of Urwuza crimson magic as a guide to induce the flow of other crimson magic. Even without using crimson touch, it can also perform simple off-body energy attacks. The third is Zimilan, which can preserve Urwuza crimson magic in any situation where crimson magic is needed, and only consume normal crimson magic. As for Wei Chongfeng, Li Zhoguang suggested that he also strengthen his mind ability, because this is his only skill now, and there is no better choice. As for Xiang Fasai, he still chose to strengthen his body comprehensively. And Qin Daniu also chose to strengthen the bull fist. Wang Shiyun was excluded from the team. Even though Wei Chongfeng was reminded by Li Zhoguang that he could choose the direction of strengthening, he did not tell Wang Shiyun. As for Huang Shiren, Li Zhoguang also asked him to try to choose strengthening. But it didn't work at all. After the test, it really only enjoyed the most basic language translation function, and the rest of the functions had nothing to do with it. After picking up the ticket, Li Zhoguang specifically asked Qin Daniu to remember his remote apprenticeship service and the tablet takeaway package, and asked Xiang Fasai to help him find a more advanced cultivation method. Wei Chongfeng felt that he had initially integrated into the team, and tried to entrust members to help find what he needed. Seeds? Is the grain yield in your place very low? No, it's just that the land my family gave me looks fertile, but it can't grow grain. Li Zhoguang asked carefully and found out that he was given a large piece of saline alkali land by his family. Although he himself did not lack that little output, his subordinates had to rely on those lands to survive. If he couldn't grow grain all the time, he would either pay his subordinates out of his own pocket or watch his subordinates become fewer and fewer. Although he has now obtained a lot of gold, it is okay to use a small amount without the cover of his own industry, but using a large amount is not allowed. Now he just wants to ask other people if there are high-yield grain seeds in their hometowns. Li Zhoguang promised him that he would bring him some salt-tolerant wheat seeds next time. After getting off the train, Li Zhoguang returned to the villa in Pakistan Railway and looked at the wall clock. It was only a few seconds since he left. He took off his gear, took a shower, and then started to book a flight back home. At this time, he saw Huang Shiren was a little depressed. What's wrong? Chiji, Chiji. Huang Shiren gestured, but unfortunately Li Zhoguang didn't understand. Although Huang Shiren was recognized by the train and could understand the language of other passengers still couldn't understand Huang Shiren's words. Perhaps in the eyes of the train, the sounds that express their own emotions cannot be regarded as language. Li Zhoguang could only guess one by one. Have you finished watching the cartoon? Have you finished eating snacks? Is the tablet out of power? After trying a few more times, he found out that Huang Shiren thought that everyone else had received the blessing of the dragon god, but he was the only one who didn't get it, and he felt very disappointed. Li Zhoguang took out a large piece of dried meat and stuffed it into his mouth. You think about this and that all day long, and you can meet me, which is the greatest blessing. Huang Shiren looked at the dried meat in his hand and thought about it. The blessing of the dragon god only happened once, but he could eat dried meat that could increase his cultivation every day. Suddenly, he became happy again. Li Zhoguang shook his head. Huang Shiren was like a child. Li Zhoguang stroked Huang Shiren while thinking that although it was just the result of an attempt, it also played a significant role along the way. Huang Shiren was able to complete the task with him, proving that they, the passengers directly recruited by the train, were capable of pulling people on board. Except for the lack of an opportunity to strengthen after the task was completed, the skills and props obtained during the task were enough. Even if this temporary passenger is strong enough, he might grow faster than a weakling like Wang Shiyun. If Li Zhoguang is the kind of person who doesn't care about human life and only considers completing the mission, he will definitely train death warriors in the real world. He can also train various professional talents according to different needs. Every time he carries out a mission, he will directly take a team with him, which will undoubtedly reduce a lot of difficulty. As for the training plan, let's not talk about other things. Just through the wild beast jerky obtained by Qin Danyu and the snake shadow fist, he can form a group of extraordinary armed forces. Even if he is reluctant to give up these resources, such as Kai Nian's practice of giving extraordinary seeds. Thinking of this, Li Zhoguang was shocked, and he began to recall the details of some of the information he had obtained before. After a while, he calmed down a little, took out his mobile phone, and dialed Zhang Xiahong's WeChat number. Hello, this is Li Zhoguang, are you free the day after tomorrow? After having the storage bag, Li Zhoguang passed the airport security check much more easily. He took the flight back to China early the next morning, and it was already evening when he arrived home. I made a special trip around in front of my parents to show that I was back in good condition, went to the warehouse to get some things, and then prepared to return to my house. Before leaving, Li Zhoguang's mother also took a liking to Huang Shiren and said that it was okay for him to leave, but the weasel had to stay. Li Zhoguang spent a while before taking Huang Shiren out of the door. After returning to his house, Li Zhoguang did not rest. Instead, he booked a high-speed rail ticket to Qiuchen early the next morning. When he asked Zhang Xiaohong to meet, he learned that he had left Rongcheng and returned to his hometown in Qiuchen. Originally, Li Zhoguang wanted to inquire about something, so he simply made a trip himself. Because the time between tasks was limited, Li Zhoguang was unwilling to waste any time. Handsome guy, we're here, please remember to give us a good review. Must. Your pet is so special. Excellent. Li Zhoguang got off the online car-hailing car and looked at the 3-story small foreign-style building built next to the field ridge. He also checked the location where Zhang Xiaohong came from. It seemed that this was the right place. He walked up and knocked on the door, and heard the sound of slippers scraping against the ground from behind the door. The door opened, and the person who opened it was Zhang Xiaohong. It seemed that we had found the right place. Zhang Xiaohong invited Li Zhoguang into the house, took out a cup, poured a glass of water for Li Zhoguang and himself, and asked, "What's the matter with you coming to see me in such a hurry? Mainly I want to see how you are doing now, and I want to ask you some questions by the way." Zhang Xiaohong grinned, "If you reverse the order of priority, I would still believe it. If you see through something but don't tell it off, friendship will last longer." Zhang Xiaohong heard this and glanced sideways at Li Zhoguang. Although the contact time was short, Li Zhoguang left a deep impression on him. According to this person's urine, how could he come to care about his current situation after only a month? "If you have anything to do, just ask. I want to know about the day your brother suddenly came back to see you." Zhang Xiaohong frowned, "Why do you suddenly care about this matter?" Li Zhoguang explained, "I was thinking that after your brother came back that day, you immediately awakened your ability. Could it be that your brother brought something back and it acted as an inducer?" Zhang Xiaohong met for a while and said firmly, "Although my brother brought back a lot of things that day, they were all purchased in the mall. We also had dinner together. We all ate the same things, so there was no difference." Li Zhoguang shook his head, "The inducer is not necessarily something to eat. It may just be a special item or a sudden touch." Zhang Xiaohong smiled, "You can do it with just a touch. It can't be that simple." Li Zhoguang raised his right hand, and a red flame ignited in his hand, "I can do it now." Zhang Xiaohong's eyes lit up, "Then let's cooperate." Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Li Zhoguang, "Don't think about it. Those who are given abilities by my violence have more than 90% chance of dying suddenly." Hearing what Li Zhoguang said, Zhang Xiaohong also lost interest, "Oh. Let's continue talking about my brother. Everyone ate the same thing that day, and they didn't touch anything special. The only special thing was that my brother brought I played all day. It's not that he doesn't take care of me, but that he is more sensible. When he was at home, he would help his parents with farming or housework whenever he had time, and he rarely had time to play. That day was probably the longest time my brother had played with me since I can remember. Do you want to tell me in detail where you went? What did you do?" Zhang Xiaohong pointed to the hill outside the window, "It's in the back mountain. There's not really much to do. I just go for a walk up the mountain, pick wild fruits, and catch bugs." "Is there any legend about this back mountain?" Zhang Xiaohong clapped her hands, "I heard the old man say that there is Wang Taisin on this mountain." As if he heard someone calling him, Huang Shiren, who had been resting on Li Zhoguang's lap, suddenly stood up. Li Zhoguang pointed to the hill behind, and Huang Shiren ran to the window with understanding, sniffed at the hill, then turned his head, and seeing Li Zhoguang nodding, he slipped out of the window and ran towards the hill. Past. Zhang Xiaohong saw Huang Shiren from the beginning, but never asked, but at this time he was shocked by its so humane expression, "What is it?" "Wang Taisin." "Ba, ba, ba, don't dare to say this nonsense. Don't be surprised if there is something strange. Don't be surprised if there is something strange." Li Zhoguang took a sip from the water glass and planned to change the topic, "Has that spiritual retreat been disbanded?" "It's been disbanded. The previous members don't know that I live here. As long as I block my phone number and delete my WeChat account, they won't be able to find me. What are your plans next?" Zhang Xiaohong pointed to the papers stacked in the corner of the room, "I'll listen to you and go to school. But I stopped going to school after I finished junior high school. Now I have found several high schools that are willing to accept me, but they need to take the exam. I decided to review for a year and take the exam." "How were your grades?" Zhang Xiaohong shook her head, "Not good." "Then why don't you find a cram school? There is little point in reviewing on your own. I calculated, I only have enough money to finish high school. As for college, if I can pass the entrance exam, various policies can support me to finish my studies." Li Zhoguang sighed, "It seems that those members really don't leave you any soup after eating the meat. Give me the card and I'll transfer some money to you. A gentleman does not accept food given out of pity. I asked you for a lot of information this time, so I'll consider it as intelligence fee." Zhang Xiaohong still refused to accept it. "I didn't help you with anything, and do you suspect my brother?" I checked some information about your brother, but I won't tell you how to check it. Before your brother disappeared, he flew back to Shanghai and took a taxi to the city center. There was no news after that, so it should not be the so-called going abroad. Zhang Xiaohong recalled and said, my family also called the police and checked my brother's communication records. His communications were all with friends, family, and work. I didn't find the big boss he mentioned, but I could see that he was very excited that day and really wanted to introduce me to the so-called big boss. This person should not be fictional. If he is so grateful to the big boss, he should have talked a lot about his deeds with his family, right? Zhang Xiaohong shook her head. No, he said that the big boss doesn't like to mention his own affairs to others. He only knows that the big boss's surname is Chen, and his real name is unknown. It seems that he has a nickname called Train Conductor. Li Zhuguang's hair stood on end, and his heart was shocked. Because of the fluctuation of emotions, some of the deep red magic power also escaped, making his eyes red. Zhang Xiaohong was startled by Li Zhuguang's appearance and asked, "Are you okay?" Li Zhuguang heard Zhang Xiaohong's voice and came back to his senses. Nothing. Sorry, I just broke through recently and my ability is a little out of control. Li Zhuguang changed the topic and began to chat with Zhang Xiaohong in a casual manner, and at the same time used the blood contract to notify Huang Shiren to come back. After 10 minutes, Huang Shiren ran into the house and shook his head at Li Zhuguang. Li Zhuguang stroked Huang Shiren while chatting with Zhang Xiaohong for a while, and then said goodbye. I still called an online taxi to go to the airport. On the way to the airport, I transferred 200,000 yuan into Zhang Xiaohong's card, and bought a recent flight ticket from Qiachen to Modu, and arrived in Modu in the evening. After leaving the airport, I called another taxi to go to Modu Center Building, which is the tallest building in Modu. I bought a sightseeing ticket for the top floor and took the elevator straight to the 118th floor. After reaching the top floor, Li Zhuguang was not in the mood to go to the window to overlook the scenery of the Demon City. Instead, he found a cubicle in the bathroom on the top floor. He closed the door and confirmed that there were no cameras nearby, then he collected his mind. His mind began to surge. The Hunter World's mind ability has 4 basic techniques, known as the 4 major lines, namely entanglement, absolute, lien, and emit. The technique of keeping the qi in the body is called entanglement. Learning entanglement can make the body stronger and youthful. At the same time, it can also focus the mind and gaze at oneself. It is a mental concentration method to calm the mood and keep the emotions stable. Entanglement can be used to defend against attacks from people who use mind ability with mind. In combat, the strength of entanglement is equal to the defense against mind attacks. Absolute is a technique to cut off the loss of qi, which can treat extreme fatigue and eliminate worries. Tighten and isolate the qi and breath of the whole body, making one's presence weak. In the state of absolute, the defense against mind attacks approaches 0. Lien is a technique to generate extra qi. Use entanglement to concentrate the mind and burst out a strong aura, and use lien to sublimate the will. The qi lien in the body is emitted from the pores together, releasing more qi than usual. Fa is a killing move, and the will of Fa can change according to the target, so-called win by momentum. I don't move, the enemy retreats. This is the culmination of the ability of mind, which can freely manipulate and use one's own qi. The ability of the ultimate move varies from person to person. And the 4 major actions are just the basic application of mind ability. With the deepening of mind ability practice, more advanced usage can be derived, such as the circle that Li Zhuguang is preparing to use at this time. Circle is a high-level joint application of entanglement and training, allowing the qi to expand outward with itself as the center of the circle, and can detect intruders within the range of qi. Due to the limitation of the amount of mind qi, the radius of the circle of beginners is only a few meters at most. If it can reach 10 meters, it is already considered a leader in this way. But after Li Zhuguang stretched out his circle, he activated his mind ability Trickster Washing the Horse Olive. With unlimited crimson magic as a support, Li Zhuguang stretched the radius of the circle to 20 kilometers in an instant, and then immediately dispersed. First, if such a large amount of crimson magic power is not dispersed quickly, it will easily make oneself further red tank-like. Second, the area wrapped by the circle can be sensed by oneself, which is a great burden on one's consciousness and energy. The circle that opened at this moment is more like an impact than a detection radar. People in the center of the entire magic city felt a moment of depression and discomfort at this moment, and those with extraordinary abilities felt even more. If Li Zhuguang himself suddenly encountered such a wave, he would subconsciously explore the place where the impact came from at the first time. So he judged others by himself, and immediately followed the second impact after the first impact. Li Zhoguang rubbed his slightly swollen temple. In the second impact, he did not find any individual whose life fluctuations were different from those of ordinary people. Either there are no extraordinary people in the center of the entire magic city, or that person is much stronger than himself and there is no trace at all. Zhang Xiahong's brother has never appeared since he returned to the magic city. It is estimated that he is in danger. What about the conductor? Is he dead too? If he hadn't died, there would be more than one train. However, if he was still alive, would he be afraid of a junior student who had only experienced 3 missions? Not everyone is as bad as Wang Shiyun. In the next few days, Li Zhoguang simply found a hotel in the center of the magic city and stayed there. Every night when it was quiet, there was a wave of circle attacks. A few days later, the residents in the center of the magic city were almost a little nervous, but no one came to find Li Zhoguang. If there were really extraordinary people, with such high-intensity harassment, even people with good tempers would have come to the door long ago. It seems that there is really no one left. Alas, the magic city, the city without magic. Li Zhoguang spent the last time in the hotel. He didn't practice the more powerful skills, but he could still practice simple flying swordsmanship. Thanks to the ability of mind, Li Zhoguang can now use trickster wearing red shoes to protect the flying sword. Whether it is driven by mana or trickster deep red magic, it will not cause damage to the flying sword. But it was okay for fighting enemies. As for flying with a sword, Li Zhoguang gave up after trying it twice. It was really awkward. And Huang Shiren, this little guy has been eating wild beast jerky since he followed Li Zhoguang. His practice has also made great progress. Now, in addition to mastering an invisibility technique, he has also learned some superficial illusion techniques. But the bad news is that he finally discovered that there are other cartoons besides Tom and Jerry. For example, now, he is watching Batman. Li Zhoguang can foresee that his practice speed will slow down again. The rest time passed in a flash, and it was time to set off again. Huang Shiren jumped on Li Zhoguang's shoulder, and in an instant, the two appeared in the carriage again. Li Zhoguang first scanned the carriage, and as expected, he found a new passenger. It was a woman wearing leather armor and carrying a bow and arrow. More importantly, although her skin was a little dark, she was extremely beautiful, and her ears were still pointed, like an elf in a magical work. Li Zhoguang's crimson touch emerged, ready to attack at any time. Qin Dainiu, Xiang Fasai and Wei Chongfeng were also a little wary of the new passengers because of the old man's incident. The elf woman looked at the few people and said, "It turns out that there is an adventure team that has come to this ruins before. Can I join them? I am very good at archery." Li Zhoguang came forward to negotiate. "Excuse me, who are you?" "I am Ariana Evelyn Thalia. Fiona Cassandra, you can call me Ariana. As you can see, I am a ranger of the wild elf tribe." "Oh, my god, you guys have really nice skin, just like us elves. You must be a noble or a wizard. Or both." Li Zhoguang spread his hands. "I don't know what your adventure team is like, but let me introduce our situation to you first." Then Li Zhoguang informed Ariana of the general situation of everyone, and then she began to look around carefully. "They are all made of wood. I thought I had broken into a secret room. There is actually a magic lamp here. Get rich, get rich." Xiang Fasai's face wrinkled slightly, but then he saw the woman taking out a dagger from her waist and going to cut the kerosene lamp in the carriage. Except for Li Zhoguang, everyone else was shocked. "Stop!" But it was still a step too late. She had already stabbed the dagger into the car wall. Electric light erupted out of thin air in the carriage and struck Ariana. She had no time to dodge before she was hit squarely. Ariana, whose whole body was numb from the electric shock, lay on the ground and gasped, "Magic trap!" Wei Chongfeng had been staring at Ariana's beautiful face since just now, and now he couldn't bear to see her suffering divine punishment. So he kindly reminded her, "This is inside the upper body of the dragon god. You were good at attacking just now and angered your majesty. Your majesty only punished you slightly and did not take your life. Why don't you apologize quickly?" Ariana was a little numb from the electric shock, and couldn't get up for a while. She lay on the ground and sighed, "Wow, your accent is more elegant than the priests in the tribe, but I have read little literature. Can you say something I can understand?" Wei Chongfeng sighed, "This is the inside of Lord Dragon God's Dharma body. You just attacked without authorization and angered Lord Dragon God. Now Lord Dragon God only punished you a little and did not take away your life. Why don't you hurry up and ask for help? Lord Dragon God, please forgive me. Aliana was a little surprised. God. Wei Chongfeng, yes. Aliana immediately turned over, knelt on one knee, and began to pray devoutly. Her voice was very low and her speed was very fast. Li Zhoguang could only vaguely hear words like forgiveness, harvest, water source and so on. After a long time, Aliana felt that there was no divine punishment coming again, so she stood up carefully. She asked Li Zhoguang, so it seems that what we need to find is the sacrifice required by Lord Dragon God. That's right. Then I am now a member of the group, right? Only temporarily. Aliana licked her lips. Do you have anything to drink? My supplies are used up, and I haven't had a drop of water for 3 days. Li Zhoguang took out a bottle of mineral water from the storage bag and threw it to Aliana. Space equipment? Oh my god, you are so rich. Wait, this container, this water? Are you sure you want to give me such clean water to drink? This water is top quality even if it is used to sacrifice to gods. Li Zhoguang waved his hand. Drink as much as you want, all you can eat. Although Aliana heard what Li Zhoguang said, she still only drank a small sip, and poured the rest into her own water bag, and returned the bottle of mineral water to Li Zhoguang. Li Zhoguang saw her like this, but didn't say anything, just took out another apple and handed it to her. Fruit. Li Zhoguang scratched his ears which were somewhat stunned by the soprano, and said helplessly, is the place you came from particularly scarce? Aliana took the apple, but did not eat it, but carefully put it in her pocket. That's because you nobles don't know the suffering of others. I accepted a fruit from you, and you don't have to count my share of the spoils of the next adventure. Not really, not really. Li Zhoguang casually comforted Aliana, and then turned his eyes to the door at the end of the carriage. Since Li Zhoguang first stepped on the train, he actually didn't spend much time inside the train. Whether getting off or getting on the train, it was done through the side door of the carriage. However, Li Zhoguang never tried to open the 2 passage doors in the carriage. There is no need to talk about the rear passage door, because the entire train has only one section of the carriage, and there is nothing behind this carriage. The front passage door leads directly to the front of the train. What is the front of the train like? Li Zhoguang walked towards the front passage door and put his hand on the handle. At this time, a light screen appeared in front of him, showing insufficient authority. You need train conductor authority to enter. Li Zhoguang asked the light screen, how can I become a train conductor? The energy car is lost, do you want to find it back? Li Zhoguang hesitated and replied, yes. As Li Zhuguang's voice fell, the light screen appeared, but this time it was not a choice of 3 tasks, but only one task was given. Go to the Middle-earth of Arda to find the energy car. After a few seconds, it jumped directly to the option of initial assistance. Please choose initial assistance. Selection countdown, 1 o'clock. 1. Language proficiency. 2. Mission map. 3. Healing potion. I didn't expect it to be here. Li Zhoguang sighed. After thinking for a while, Li Zhoguang reluctantly chose healing potion, because whether it was the novel version or the film and television version, there were many languages circulated in the Middle-earth. But for some reason, the common language on the continent, both in pronunciation and text, is the same as English. As for the mission map, Li Zhoguang thought it was useless in this mission, and he was not sure whether he would have the chance to carry out this mission. Because after watching the movie of The Lord of the Rings, Li Zhoguang went to learn about the relevant settings on a whim, and only then did he know that at the end of the movie, all the major forces in Middle-earth participated in the Battle of the Pelennor Plains, which was a mess. In the worldview of the original book, it was just a small fight. Because there were only a few Maya who participated in the high-end combat force. Many people regard Maya as a demigod race, but this view is actually wrong. The meaning of Maya is closer to class. The creator god of Arda, Eru Elevator, first created the Einar tribe. The 14 most powerful Einar were called Vala. Representative figures include All, who created the dwarves, and Morgoth, who created Smaug and Sauron. The remaining numerous low-level Einar are called Maya, and the representatives are Gandalf, Saruman, Sauron, Smaug, Balrog, Radagast and the giant Eagle King. Here they can be understood as God creating angels, and angels are divided into archangels and ordinary angels. These Einar created by Eru Elevator are the products of his thoughts, and he gave them free will with the eternal fire. Each Einar was born from a different fragment of Elevator's thoughts, so they could not understand each other at first. In order to make the Einar understand each other, Elevator taught the Einar to sing. In the process of trying to sing in chorus and listening to others, the Einar's understanding of their compatriots became deeper and the chorus became more harmonious. When the time was right, Elevator summoned all the Einar, announced an unprecedented grand theme, and ordered them to sing in chorus according to this theme. This is the great music of the Einar. This great music of the Ainu is exactly what happened on Arda. A certain hobbit ate a cold chicken today, which is part of the music. The evil dragon Smog occupied the lonely mountain, which is also part of the music. The Fellowship of the Ring went to Mount Doom under the cover of many forces and killed a powerful Maya once as a mortal, which is also part of the music. Whether it is the humans and elves created by Eru Elevator himself, or other races created by other Vala, they are just notes in the great music of the Ainu. As strong as Saruman, Smog, and Sauron are just a few insignificant musicians. So Li Zhoguang had a headache. The appearance of several of them was like the noise in a symphony. The audience may not be able to detect it, but it will definitely not be hidden from the conductor. What's more, Li Zhoguang is not as simple as noise. Behind him stands a dimensional demon god. Although it is unknown who has a thicker wrist between Sai Zong and Eru Elevator. But bringing another foreign conductor to the stage of a symphony is undoubtedly a serious provocation. There is no hope, just wait for death. I should have written a suicide note to my parents earlier. Li Zhoguang was ready to be destroyed by Eru Elevator as soon as the train arrived at the station. After choosing the auxiliary, the train began to shake, and Li Zhoguang closed his eyes. He slowly opened his eyes until the train stopped shaking and Qin Daniu gently pushed him. He glanced at the scenery outside the window and sighed, not dead. At this time, the light screen in front of him was also updated, but this time it did not show the picture of the energy car, but a blank. It seemed that I needed to identify it myself. Fortunately, the mission location this time is Middle-earth, where there will be no other train cars. Not dead, there are two possibilities. One is that Eru Elevator doesn't care about them at all, and the other is that the train is actually a very awesome leg guy. But if Li Zhoguang remembered correctly, the train's protection was only within a certain range. I have to go out eventually, and I don't know if anything will happen if I leave the shelter of the train. While Li Zhoguang was still doing mental construction, Ariana on the side had already screamed, trees, trees, trees. There are also shrubs and lawns. Ah! Others covered their ears to resist the noise she made. Ariana, screaming, jumped out of the side door. Hey, wait! Li Zhoguang wanted to stop him, but Ariana was so excited that she couldn't hear him. After jumping out of the car, she swooped down on the grass and slid for a distance. After stopping, he started rolling on the grass. Although Li Zhoguang has not measured the precise size of the train's shelter distance, according to past experience, Ariana's position at this time is definitely beyond the range. Li Zhoguang stopped the others behind him and asked them not to get out of the car yet. After waiting for a while, he saw Ariana still rolling on the grass. Then he said to the people behind him, "This mission is a bit special. You stay in the car, and I will go down and take a look first. If everything is okay, I will explain to you. If I die, you will need to find another carriage here based on the image and bring it back." Looking at the confused eyes of everyone, Li Zhoguang had no choice but to add, "It's the same thing as the dragon god's Dharmakaya. You are different from me. Even if I die, looking at the way Ariana is fine, you should be fine too." After saying that, Li Zhoguang was about to jump out of the carriage, but was stopped by Qin Daniu. "Is it dangerous? I can't let you be in danger alone." Xiang Fasai also complained, "Hey, we are all comrades in arms, who do you look down on?" Wei Chongfeng also stood up at this time, "I am willing to go through fire and water as the main priest." Li Zhoguang waved his hand, "This time is really different. I may have to face the punishment of a creation god this time. I won't say anything anymore, lest the breath I finally mustered up disappears. I'll go down and give it a try. You guys don't follow me, don't come." Everyone was shocked when they saw what Li Zhoguang said was so serious. While they were stunned at the stall, Li Zhoguang threw Huang Shiren, the storage bag and the armor backpack into the carriage. One of them jumped out of the carriage and ran out. In order not to implicate the innocent, he also deliberately walked around Ai who was rolling. Liana. After running about 10 meters, Li Zhoguang stopped and waited quietly. After a while, the divine punishment of Eru elevator did not come, and no Vala or Maya descended from the sky to show Li Zhoguang something. Li Zhoguang's feet went soft, and like Ariana not far away, he lay down on the grass, breathing heavily. Seeing Li Zhoguang suddenly fall to the ground, the people in the car didn't care anymore and ran over immediately. Everyone gathered around Li Zhoguang. Seeing that he was still alive, they all breathed a sigh of relief and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Li Zhoguang said feebly, "I'm just a little scared." With that said, he used Ju to stabilize his emotions. After a few breaths, Li Zhoguang patted the weeds on his body, sat up, and introduced the relevant situation of this world to everyone. No one else knew that Li Zhoguang was bound to the Crimson Universe. They only thought that he represented the Dragon God. They were afraid that the Dragon God would conflict with the local gods of this world, so they sacrificed him to the flag first. Xiang Fasai scolded, "If you encounter this problem in the future, you can tell us first. We are all grasshoppers on a rope. You don't have to shoulder everything alone." Li Zhoguang nodded. After taking a short rest, return to the train and pick up your storage bag and equipment. Huang Shiren also returned to Li Zhoguang's shoulder, chirping at him dissatisfied. Li Zhoguang blocked its mouth with a piece of dried meat, then reached into his storage bag and took out more than 10 jars of various types of honey and handed them to Xiang Fasai. This is already made by Li Zhoguang in his own warehouse, without any additives. Then he took out a few large bags of salt-tolerant wheat seeds and handed them to Wei Chongfeng. Xiang Fasai handed Li Zhoguang the jade slip that recorded the advanced human cultivation techniques. Qin Dainiu also coquettishly took out a tablet wrapped in coarse cloth, looking a little hesitant. "Brother Li, this tablet does not belong to our ancestor. After I told the master about your request, the other elders went crazy and disagreed with your approach. But the master found it very interesting, but due to the rules of the sect, he carved a new tablet for me to hand over to you. It was carved with his own name and filled with his own seeds." And he also said. Speaking of this, Qin Dainiu looked a little ugly and hesitant. What else did he say? Qin Dainiu gritted his teeth and said, "He said that if he accepts you as a cultivator, he should accept you as his disciple and teach you the true meaning. But if you insult his disciple, you can't let it go lightly. In this tablet, in addition to the seeds, there is also the punch he punched in the heart. If you want to inherit, you have to take a punch from him. If you can catch it, it is the true inheritance of Manyu martial arts school. If you can't catch it, the path of life and death will disappear. Brother Li, if you don't care, I can teach you when I become a teacher." Li Zhoguang waved his hand, "Your master's request is very reasonable, there is nothing to hesitate about." Qin Dainiu persuaded again, "You don't understand my master's situation. Although he has only practiced barbarian bull fist to the 5th level, he is different from ordinary warriors. Although his martial arts breakthroughs are limited by his bloodline. But both his talent and understanding are amazing. If you are an ordinary warrior, even if you are an 8th level warrior, I will not advise you, but he." Li Zhoguang reassured Qin Dainiu again, "I do not know your master's situation, but he doesn't know my situation either. My situation is much more special than his. By the way, how does this thing work?" Seeing that Li Zhoguang had made up his mind, Qin Dainiu stopped persuading him. He just uncovered the cloth wrapping the tablet and placed it on the ground, just face the tablet and kneel down and kowtow 3 times as usual. Li Zhoguang nodded and knelt down in front of the memorial tablet. When he kowtowed for the first time, there was no reaction. Li Zhoguang raised his head slightly and looked at the tablet. The wood of the tablet was very new, and it could be seen that it was indeed newly carved. Li Zhoguang didn't recognize any of the characters on the tablet. He only felt that the strokes of the characters were strong and powerful. It doesn't look like it was carved with a knife. The bend is so round. Finger? Li Zhoguang knocked again for the second time, bang. A huge sound exploded above my head, making my scalp numb from the shock. No, this is not a real voice. Li Zhoguang looked up at the tablet again. The illusory sound just now came from the tablet. At this time, in Li Zhoguang's eyes, the memorial tablet was like the fence of a bull ring. Behind the fence, there was an angry bull that couldn't hold back its restless heart and was rushing against the fence. Li Zhoguang summoned up the crimson magic power to protect his whole body, gritted his teeth, and kowtowed for the 3rd time. Bang! This time it really made a noise, and even the others who were watching Li Zhuguang's apprenticeship heard it. Li Zhuguang felt as if he had become a bullfight, and another bull bumped into him hard and hit him on the head. The collision made stars appear in his eyes, but with the protection of the crimson magic power, he was only slightly stunned. The pain in the top of my head went away just as quickly as it came. After the pain ended, Li Zhuguang raised his head again. At this time, there was no tablet in his eyes, only a majestic white monster with 4 horns on its head, trotting towards him leisurely. But at this moment, the crimson magic power in the body began to agitate. It was obvious that it had not reacted so much when it was attacked just now. No, now we have to prepare for the prelude to strangulation. Li Zhuguang immediately activated his telekinesis ability. 25 boys wearing red shoes, and 25 boys' crimson magic surged towards the white monster cow first and seeped into the monster cow's body. Protect our cows. When the normal crimson magic arrived, only a red magic cow constructed of crimson magic was found. Although it is confirmed that they are the same kind, this little thing looks really unique. So he circled around the strange cow, and was controlled by Li Zhuguang to return to his body. The strange cow didn't care about the changes in its body and continued to run towards Li Zhuguang. It ran into the depths of Li Zhuguang's soul leisurely and melted away. Seeing that Li Zhuguang had successfully become a disciple, Qin Dainiu happily helped him up. Brother Li, from today on, you are my junior brother. Good guy, do you still want to keep your feelings separate? Li Zhuguang made a fool out of him, but he was not going to call him senior brother Qin Dainiu anyway. Everyone packed their bags and were about to hit the road, when they saw Ariana still lying on the ground. Li Zhuguang stepped forward and pulled her up. Are you still a child? You roll around when you see the lawn. Ariana's eyes widened and she said in disbelief, this is a lawn. Are you not surprised at all? Oh, I forgot that you are nobles. The water in your home should be able to support a lawn. Var. Li Zhuguang felt that there was something abnormal about this elf, and after careful questioning, he found out that their world had experienced a huge disaster. Plants in nature died on a large scale, and there were very few left, and water resources were also very scarce. Most of the creatures that can still survive in the wild are semi-elemental creatures. The surface of these organisms is covered with a thick layer of rocky hard skin, and their muscles and bones are also stone-like materials. Only a small core inside the body is edible meat. Due to the lack of basic resources, except for semi-elemental creatures, the populations of other races have decreased significantly. Many fragile races have become extinct. Even the surviving races are still struggling to survive, and it is common for civilizations to end epochs. According to the high priest of the Ariana tribe, their elves used to live in the forest and were the darlings of the gods. They were the best among all races in terms of art and magic. But later on, the forest could only be seen in paintings and poems, and their elves became wilderness elves. After listening to Ariana's words, Li Zhuguang finally understood why her previous behavior was so strange. Good guys, is this the end of the world where you are? Ariana shrugged. The elders in the clan said the same thing, but my hometown was like this before I was born, so I'm used to it. Only those antiques who are over 1,000 years old have seen what the world was like before. Li Zhuguang sighed, and took out another apple and handed it to her. Eat it, fruit is not a luxury here, you can eat it if you want. Ariana took the apple with some confusion, but still chose to put it in her bag. Where are you from? Harvest City or Flowing Valley? No, even the noble master in Harvest City cannot say fruit, that's enough. Is there a possibility that you are no longer in the original world? Ariana said with relief, it turns out I'm dead, no wonder there are so many fruits here. I saw you as soon as I stepped into the ruins. It seems that I stepped into a trap the moment I stepped into the ruins. It turns out that the legendary underworld is controlled by a dragon god. Li Zhuguang saw that he was getting more and more outrageous, so he explained everything to her in detail. Then what you mean is that we are in another world now, a world of material abundance. Ariana's eyes shone. Li Zhuguang took a sip of water, that's right. At this time, Ariana took out the apple and took a big bite. Both skin and core were swallowed by her. Li Zhuguang also greeted everyone to start setting off. Just now he found a trail beside the bushes where people were walking out. As long as you follow the trail, no matter which direction you go, you will eventually encounter a settlement. After walking a few steps, I met other people on the road. These people were very short in stature. Although they were decently dressed, they all had bare feet and walked on the road barefoot. When they saw Li Zhuguang and his party, they all greeted them friendly. It seemed that these were hobbits. A hobbit couple passed by, and Ariana exclaimed, "Oh my god, halflings have become extinct where we live." Hearing Ariana's words, Li Zhoguang subconsciously wanted to cover her mouth, but suddenly remembered that they couldn't understand Ariana's language, so he gave up. Li Zhoguang asked the hobbit couple in a friendly manner, "Sorry, our map is lost. Where is the nearest settlement? We need to purchase some food." The couple enthusiastically told Li Zhoguang that this place was near the Shire, and thoughtfully told him how to get there. Finally, they invited Li Zhoguang and his party to visit the Took family in the Shire. The Tooks? Do you know Bilbo Baggins? The hobbit husband replied, "Of course I do, he is my nephew, the son of my sister Belladonna Took, a fine young man in his early 50s. But I remember that he never left me all my life." "Charles, how do you know him?" Hearing that Bilbo was only in his 50s, Li Zhoguang could probably determine the time. "We have seen other Tuks outside, and they have mentioned him. After all, as a member of the Tux family, you should also know that Tux members of the Graham family are mostly adventurous." "That's right, then have they ever mentioned me, Hilda Fence?" Okay, I understand. Bilbo lives in Bag End at the end of the Shire. You can see it as soon as you enter the Shire." "Thank you, kind Mr. Took." "You're welcome, they really didn't mention it." This. Well, have a nice day, stranger." Li Zhoguang and the others headed in the direction pointed by the hobbit couple just now, but unexpectedly, at a fork in the road, they met a man wearing a hard hat, leaning on a wooden staff, and with the face of Magneto. Grey Robe Wizard. This is the #1 troublemaker in Middle-earth, the Fire Captain, Zhang Zia's alter ego, and the knife slinger Gandalf who only carries flash bombs when he goes out. Gandalf also saw Li Zhoguang and his party, and he frowned in confusion. But what made Li Zhoguang feel at ease was that he only stared at the crowd and did not rush up with a staff to smash his dog's head. Li Zhoguang is not afraid of Gandalf. He has now come to Middle-earth in a physical form. If Maya wants to come to Middle-earth in a more peaceful way, she must give up most of her power and her strength will be greatly reduced. Li Zhoguang and the others, it's very easy to defeat him. But Gandalf's attitude is very crucial. As of now, it seems that Eru Elevator has not notified his Einar to clean up the intruders. Li Zhoguang stepped forward. "Gandalf." "Yes, you look strange." "Are you?" "We are outsiders. I am Li Zhoguang, the captain of this adventure team." "Nice to meet you." "Oh, nice to meet you. Adventure party? The Shire is full of hobbits. This is not a good place for adventure." "Look at what you said. Didn't you come here too?" The starting point of all adventures does not necessarily start in a grand place. It is possible that it starts in a hobbit hole. Li Zhoguang's words aroused Gandalf's alert. He tightened the staff in his hand and asked again, "Adventurers who have come from afar, what are you seeking here?" Li Zhoguang smacked his lips. "I originally came to see Bilbo Baggins. I wanted to confirm what stage I was in now, but I have just confirmed it. Now that I have met you, I want to confirm other things." "What?" "You said that if I went to the Lonely Mountain to kill Smaug and seize the wealth of the Durin dwarf dynasty, what would you do?" "I know what you have heard, but I have to tell you that the treasure of the Durin dwarves belongs to the future king under the mountain." "Yes, I know. But what I want to ask is, if I really do this, will you bother Saruman, the Eagle King, Radagast, and the other Muse to beat me?" Hearing Li Zhoguang mention Muse, Gandalf's eyes became dark. "It seems that you know a lot, but whether the Muse will take action depends on what you have done. Suppose I just take the wealth inside and put a reward on what I'm looking for, and this thing won't bring disaster to Middle-earth. How would you deal with it?" Gandalf was silent for a while after hearing Li Zhoguang's words. "If this is the case, I can only persuade you to give up the treasure of the Lonely Mountain and the king under the mountain." Li Zhoguang understood. It seems that the only ones who can make you take action are the forces of Morgoth. You help Thorin seize the Lonely Mountain this time, not only to get rid of Smaug who was cultivated by Morgoth, but also to fulfill the mission of Arcana. The dwarves created by force. Gandalf was silent. "No, you have already foreseen that Sauron will come back. You want the Durin dwarves to rise again and become one of the forces against Sauron in the future." "Profit?" "Not exactly, just think that I took a sneak peek at the last section of the movement." Li Zhoguang continued, "The last question is, can your father god tolerate noise in the Ainu Grand movement?" Gandalf also realized at this time what kind of foreign method Li Zhoguang just mentioned about the outsiders, and replied, everything that appears in the big movement is part of the movement, and there is no so-called noise. This puts me at ease. You are such a good person, Gandalf. Let me introduce myself again. I am your competitor on this journey, Li Zhoguang. Hearing Li Zhoguang's words, Gandalf frowned deeply. Oh. Can't we discuss it? What are you looking for? I will find a way to help you find it. If it doesn't work, I can ask my friends for help. Li Zhoguang shook his head. It's not that I don't trust your character, but there is a difference between looking for yourself and looking for someone else. Even if you have friends all over the world and they promise to help, they are just helping. I want them to act for their own interests, so that they can do whatever they can. Gandalf tried to persuade again, you can also choose to help Thorin. If he becomes the king of the Lonely Mountain, he can also mobilize the dwarves to help you find things. Li Zhoguang stared at Gandalf dumbfounded. I remember you know Thranduil from Mirkwood? Good guy, that old man ordered a necklace for his wife. His wife has been married for many years, and the necklace has arrived. It is still kept in Gushan today. All of them, the forest dwarves, all have dragon disease and are insane. The promises they made are as worthless as the orc's crotch cloth. Hearing Li Zhoguang mention the long-standing illusion between elves and dwarves, Gandalf showed a hint of embarrassment on his face. Thorin is different from his grandfather. Li Zhoguang still shook his head. Perhaps the Durin dwarves are still reliable in normal times, but when they see enough wealth. Forrest Gump, I'm not telling you, sometimes you can't think too well of people. Appropriate doubt it and you can prevent a lot of bad things from happening. If Gandalf didn't believe in Bilbo so much, there would be no Fellowship of the Ring 60 years later. The Battle of the Five Armies had just finished, so we took advantage of this momentum. Gandalf, Thranduil, Galadriel, King Elrond, Ironfoot, 5 fierce men led the troops to escort a Baggins on the road. Isn't this much more reliable than the Fellowship of the Ring? Gandalf smiled, but still said, although dwarves are sometimes covered in mud like minerals in the ground, if you polish them a little, you will see their hearts of gold. Li Zhoguang shrugged, maybe. By the way, if Solon and I fight, you won't help them, right? I will try to stop you from starting a war. Okay, I understand. When the time comes, I'll try not to kill anyone. At most, I'll just humiliate him in public. With that said, he greeted everyone and walked towards the seal one step ahead of Gandalf. As soon as he entered the Shire, he saw a hobbit smoking a pipe leisurely outside a cave on the left side of the road. Good afternoon, Bilbo. Li Zhoguang waved to the hobbit. Hello sir, have we met before? Bilbo Baggins looked at Li Zhoguang and his group with some confusion. In his impression, he had no human friends. Oh my gosh, there's an elf among them. No, this is the first time we have met, but I know other hobbits from the Took family, so I know you. Which Took? Hildefons. Oh, that's my distant uncle, and my mother is his sister. Li Zhoguang dug in his pocket, took out a gold bar, and threw it to Bilbo. Go on. Hey! Bilbo saw something being thrown towards him and quickly grabbed his pipe and caught it in a hurry. Hold things in front of you and look at them. Is this gold? Yes, maybe later today, a group of dwarves will come to your house for dinner, and this will be considered as food. Their hard work is in vain, so I will treat them to this meal. With that, Li Zhoguang turned to Xia go deep into you. Wait a minute, I don't run a restaurant. Bilbo shouted behind Li Zhoguang. What did you say? I can't hear you. I said I don't own a restaurant. Oh, you run a restaurant? That's just right. I wish you a prosperous business. I said I'm not, forget it. Looking at Li Zhoguang's retreating back, Bilbo gave up. He sat back on the bench in front of the door and looked at the gold bars in his hands. Later, dwarves? Shire, in the west of Middle-earth, far away from Mordor, is a major settlement of the hobbits, and its business is quite prosperous. Not to mention the rich products, even the map of Middle-earth can be purchased here. Li Zhoguang originally wanted to buy a few horses for transportation, but unfortunately they only sold ponies for hobbits to ride. Although this kind of horse is docile and hardy, it is smaller than the pony ridden by dwarves, and is similar in size to a large dog. On the Shire side, Li Zhoguang bought some bread, cold chicken, ham, cheese, and fruit wine made by the hobbits themselves, and found a grassy spot to sit on the ground. While eating, he explained his ideas to everyone. Li Zhoguang used ham slices, wrapped fruits and cheese and stuffed them into his mouth, unfolded the map of Middle-earth, and said to everyone, "Look, this is where we are, Shire. Let's go east along the east-west avenue. Walk through the stormy hills and troll forest to reach Rivendell. There is an elven settlement there, and the elves there are relatively friendly. We can ask them about the method of passing through the Misty Mountains, and if possible, we can also make a deal. Beyond the Misty Mountains is the Dark Forest, where another group of elves live. Of course, there are also a lot of disgusting giant spiders. The elf king in Mirkwood is Thranduil. Their clan has many soldiers. We can go meet him and discuss some cooperation." Then Li Zhoguang poked his finger heavily on a spot on the map. "Here next to Mirkwood is our destination, Lonely Mountain. That was the former capital of the Durin dwarves. The hall at the bottom of the castle is filled with countless gold and silver treasures. Its value can be compared with MacDuck's collection." Aliana's mouth was full of fruit, and she asked vaguely, "Who is MacDuck?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that we need to get these treasures." Xiang Fasai frowned. "Since there are so many treasures here, why didn't anyone take them before?" "You asked the point, because there is a giant dragon living in the castle of Lonely Mountain. If you want to get the treasure, you must first kill the dragon." Everyone was shocked. Giant dragon. Wei Chongfeng was a little embarrassed. "If you want to kill the dragon, will the dragon god agree?" Li Zhoguang explained, "It's called a dragon, but it's actually a big lizard with wings." Hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Aliana swallowed the fruit in her mouth and asked, "I've read the literature about dragons. Don't all dragons look like that? And dragons are not easy to deal with." Li Zhoguang asked, "What do your dragons look like?" "The appearance is similar to what you said, but their magic attainments are not low, plus they have strong bodies. Even when our elves were at their strongest, we needed to send out an army to defeat an adult dragon." Li Zhoguang waved his hand. "That dragon doesn't know magic, it can only spit fire. That's a sub-dragon. This kind of beast with low intelligence and can't even speak is quite easy to deal with. Well, it can talk, but it's just strength. A little short of it. I understand, a useless dragon with no heritage." "That's right." Li Zhoguang took a sip of fruit wine and concluded, "In short, our initial goal is to kill the dragon and get the treasure inside. The gold inside can be used to drive humans, the Arcan gem can be used to trade with dwarves, and there is a white gem necklace that can be traded with Thranduil. Let these three parties send people to find what we want. After all, Middle-earth is so big, and we don't know how long it will take to find the quest items with just a few of us." After speaking, Li Zhoguang looked at Wang Shiyun. "This is our arrangement, what are your plans?" Wang Shiyun was used to being a little transparent. When Li Zhoguang suddenly turned around and asked her, she was startled and muttered, "I'll just stay where you are and wait for you as before." Li Zhoguang nodded, "Well, Charles is considered safe. As long as you don't leave here, there should be no problem." Li Zhoguang turned around and dug through his storage bag again, took out a few gold bars and handed them to Wang Shiyun. "One more thing, I hope to use these gold bars to buy your potion." What potion?" "It's on your body, just look for it." Although Wang Shiyun was confused, she still started to search according to Li Zhuguang's statement, and finally found a tube of potion in her purse. "This is this." Wang Shiyun felt something familiar, and suddenly she remembered that she and Wei Chongfeng had a painful experience when they were taken by the dragon god for the first time. At that time, they were so frightened by those barbaric, alien weapons that they ran to Lord Dragon God and did not dare to leave. Half starved to death, they discovered it on their bodies. After they opened the lid, they found that there was no peculiar smell, so they drank it to relieve their hunger and thirst. Unexpectedly, this thing actually worked. Although it was only a small amount, it greatly relieved the two people's hunger and thirst. At that time, the two thought it was a gift from Lord Dragon God, but they didn't expect to see this thing again now. Wei Chongfeng and Qin Daniu also recognized this thing. Wei Chongfeng was surprised and said, "This is..." Li Zhoguang didn't hide it from them. "This is a tube of healing potion that can relieve most injuries, and in some cases, it can be regarded as an extra life. You won't be in danger in the Shire. Why don't you exchange the potion for gold with me? We need it more than you do." Wang Shiyun thought for a while and chose to trade with Li Zhoguang. She thought clearly that she could buy food from the dwarves here, and even if she was in danger, it would have no effect if she gave her an extra wound medicine. More importantly, Li Zhoguang, as the officiant, was already at odds with her. If she continued to antagonize him. So Wang Shiyun happily handed the potion to Li Zhoguang, but what she didn't know was that after being strengthened 3 times, she already had good combat power. As long as she wore armor and held a sword, she could easily kill an orc soldier. As long as you are brave enough, it is not impossible to fight Azog for 300 rounds. Moreover, most of the enemies in this mission are relatively weak, so this is the best time to join Li Zhoguang and the others. It's a pity that as a lazy and fearful merchant's daughter, she never picks up heavy objects at home, but only gives orders to her servants, so she doesn't know how strong she is now. And given her character, even if she knew, she would probably make the same choice. It can only be said that character determines destiny. After leaving Wang Shiyun in the Shire, the remaining 5 people set off along the east-west avenue and soon arrived at Bree, which is adjacent to the Shire. This is the westernmost human settlement in Middle-earth. Here, you can finally buy a large horse for humans to ride. The amount of physical energy consumed by traveling is negligible for most people, but if there is a means of transportation, who would refuse it? Because it was still early and Xiang Fasai brought a complete set of outdoor tools, everyone left Bree directly after buying the horses. If they could not reach the settlement before dark, there was no problem in spending the night in the wild. But not long after everyone left Bree, they heard the messy sound of horse hooves coming from behind, which seemed to be directed at them. Only then did Li Zhoguang remember that since he had more and more gold, he was accustomed to using gold directly when spending money. Human beings are not hobbits with good natures. The principle of keeping wealth secret is applicable in any world. After the visitor approached, everyone saw that the group of people chasing from behind were wearing simple leather armor and holding inferior weapons in their hands. They looked like low-level mercenaries. Sure enough, when they got closer, they looked at Li Zhoguang and Ariana with greedy eyes. It seemed that in addition to the factor of not showing off their wealth, there was also lust. Even when they saw this group of mercenaries surrounding them, no one was nervous. These people were just ordinary humans and did not pose a threat. Li Zhoguang took out the flying sword directly. This was the first time he tried to fight an enemy with a sword since he got the flying sword. I saw a red stream of light circle around the mercenary team, and the mercenaries fell off their horses and fell to the ground. This magic prop is really good. Ariana praised and jumped off the horse, quickly running to the mercenary to check it out. Then, she turned to Li Zhoguang and said, "Next time you kill, try to attack the exposed parts, so as not to damage the protective gear or wear out the weapon." After saying that, she started to peel off the leather armor from the mercenary's corpse. But as soon as she made a move, the leather armor was torn to pieces by her. She looked at the fragments of leather armor in her hand in astonishment and said, "What kind of leather are these leather armors made of? They are not as strong as cloth armor." She picked up another weapon, held the blade and gently folded it, breaking it with a snap. Ariana stood up and shook her head, "The quality is too bad. I really don't know how they dare to come out with such garbage to rob." Despite saying this, Ariana still patiently checked all the corpses, and finally returned to the horse with a few pieces of bacon and a bag of coins. As for that, these things are not valuable. Ariana shook her head, "Anything that is conducive to survival is precious wealth, and we should cherish wealth." Li Zhoguang saw her face serious when she said this, and then remembered the situation in her world, so he stopped stopping her. He thought of the old people in his family who had experienced a period of scarcity, and even though they had no worries about food and clothing, they still lived as diligently and frugally as ever. When everyone walked through Feng Yunding, it was already evening, and they decided to camp here and rest. Because the night in Middle-earth was not peaceful, Xiang Fasai simply took off his disguise necklace and let out his breath. As expected, the effect was outstanding. Not to mention the nocturnal animals that went out to look for food, even the mosquitoes disappeared without a trace. While everyone was eating bread and stew around the campfire, a dinner party was also going on in Bilbo's bag end. Bilbo watched as the dwarves entered his house one after another and emptied the warehouse where he stored food. But he didn't panic at all, his mood was quite stable, and he even had the time to light a pipe of cigarettes for himself. Since receiving the gold, although he did not want to change his career to be a restaurant owner, after all, he had accepted other people's meal money, so the kind-hearted hobbit still counted his inventory. Feeling that the food he had stored at home was not worth the gold, he went to the market in the afternoon to purchase a lot of expensive food and fruit wine. When Gandalf walked into Bag End, he saw Bilbo holding a barrel of cider on the table. Bilbo also saw Gandalf. "Gandalf, are you here too? I thought only dwarves would come, but it doesn't matter, let's serve it." Gandalf took off his hat, sat at the table, and asked with some confusion, "How did you know Thorin and the others would come?" It was obviously his own evil intention, and he was going to tease Bilbo, but he didn't expect that he seemed to have known what would happen. Bilbo said matter-of-factly, "Earlier today, before I met you, someone gave me a piece of gold and asked me to entertain these dwarf guests. I said that I would treat them to a dinner in exchange for troubling them to come all the way in vain." After hearing Bilbo's words, all the dwarves stopped eating and looked at Bilbo with some doubts. Only Thorin asked Gandalf with some doubts, "Is it you, Gandalf? What do you mean by travelling in vain?" Gandalf first asked Bilbo about the appearance of the person who paid for the dinner, and then said to Thorin with some distress, "We are not just facing Smaug this time." Thorin stood up and said loudly, "This is an adventure we must take. Dwarves are never afraid of strong enemies." The other dwarves also banged on the table in response. "Yes, I have never doubted this." Gandalf comforted, but then he remembered the dangerous feeling brought to him by the people he had met before, and said helplessly, "Maybe what we will face will be worse than Smaug is even more difficult." Even though Thorin respects Gandalf, he still feels that he is making a fuss out of a molehill. There is no more dangerous enemy than Smaug here. It is impossible that Sauron will come too, right? I usually read too many comments on the release of other people's books, but I don't know what to write when it's my turn. So let me briefly talk about the origin of this book. In fact, the cause is very simple. I basically spend my spare time playing games, watching movies, watching anime, etc. But I found that I spent a lot of time doing these things. At the end of the day, I felt empty and irritable, and the relaxation effect was not even as good as going out for a walk. This is very annoying. One day, when I was lying in bed after finishing my daily work, I was thinking that instead of wasting time like this, I might as well spend it on something that can make money. After searching my skill tree, I found that the most likely way to make money was to write online articles. To be honest, this is not the first time I have written. I wrote a book called The Path of the Predator when I was in college, but the original intention of writing that book was not to make money, but simply out of interest. Of course, the market for online articles was not so big back then, and it was still a niche track. The starting point for signing a contract was to have hands. So even if I wrote very badly, I still easily received the contract signed by a. I remember that it was still a paper contract back then. But I felt that after signing the contract, my hobby became my job, which deviated from my original intention, so I gave up the contract, cut the book, and signed up for a tour group to go out for 2 weeks. Later, I wrote a few books one after another, but most of them were out of interest. I would update if I wanted to, and I would not update if I didn't want to. I didn't write all of them on Kidian. I wrote on Mook and Muda. I wrote on Mook because only they had the paragraph comment function at that time. I thought this function was very interesting. I could chat with sand sculpture book friends through paragraph comments every day. Even if I didn't sign a contract, I could continue writing. As for Muda, it was because its terms were easy. I could earn 400 yuan to eat hot pot with weekly updates. Would you believe it if I changed to other websites? It's just a pity that my book friends who urged me to update paid for my casualness. Then when I came to this book, I really felt that at this stage of my life, I should use my time reasonably and open up an auxiliary track to generate income and hedge risks. So after the Chinese New Year, I started writing books again on Kidian. I thought that as long as I wrote seriously and kept updating, I would be signed and I would be fine. But I ignored the increasing competition intensity as the scale of the online literature market increased dramatically. Because of my casual writing habits, I seem to have been writing for many years, but in fact I am still an amateur. So the first opening Scarlet Game, which made me think the most, failed to be published directly and did not sign the contract. I posted the first 3 chapters on Longkong and Taiba, and asked experts to help me summarize the reasons for the failure. Then I learned from the previous failure and wrote the second opening Zushan, I Just Want to Be a Human, I Refuse to Ascend, which was the opening that best suited my interests and failed to be published directly. So I wrote the third opening, which is this Train to the Other World. In order to reduce the cost of floating, I did not choose to publish directly this time, but to submit it internally. Unexpectedly, the internal submission was passed at once, so I started to write peacefully until today. I wrote for a month without realizing it, and the word count has reached 200,000 words. The follow-up reading is still in line with the requirements, so I discussed with the editor to put it on the shelves at midnight tonight. Because I am a part-time writer, 2 chapters a day is the limit, so I don't have any manuscripts saved. It can be said that I only know the subsequent plot development one night in advance than all the readers. It is impossible to release a new chapter on the shelves unless I can stay awake. So this time I will not shamelessly ask for first orders and monthly tickets from you. Please feel free to do as you please. As my first book on the shelves, I sincerely hope that this book can be like the title, a slowly moving train. No matter which station the passengers get on or off, they can encounter an unforgettable scenery during the journey, which makes people smile when they think of it by chance. Early in the morning of the second day, Li Zhoguang and his companions packed their bags, crossed the last bridge, and went straight into the ogre forest. This forest is not big, and it is famous for the presence of ogres. However, except for the Oleg tribe under Sauron, the ogres in this world are afraid of the light, and will be petrified once they see the sun. A road was opened in the forest. During the day, there were still merchants traveling through the forest. However, at night, most people chose to camp far away from the forest, and a few who were in a hurry would also detour along the forest. It was early morning when Li Zhoguang and his companions entered the forest. The ogres were hiding in the caves to rest, which saved a lot of trouble. Along the way, Li Zhoguang controlled the flying sword to cut down branches and rocks on the roadside. The flying sword provided by Xiong Fasai was well made, and with Li Zhoguang's deep red magic, it had a strong destructive attribute. Along the way, no matter what he chopped with the sword, he didn't feel any resistance. So Li Zhoguang chopped more vigorously, just like when he was a child and got a branch with good toughness. So Li Zhoguang decided that no matter whether this flying sword had a name before, from now on, it would be called Kankanal. In fact, Li Zhoguang can go to find ogres now, because the sun is shining now, and he doesn't even need to do anything. He just needs to take a mirror to reflect the sunlight into the cave to kill all the ogres. However, there are only a few gold coins and 3 weapons forged by elves in the first era in the ogre's cave. These things are not enough to arouse Li Zhoguang's interest and spend time looking for them. After leaving the ogre forest, it is already very close to Rivendell. Rivendell means Dark Valley and is the territory of the elf king Elrond. Although Elrond is the king of the elves, he is actually a mixed blood. His blood is very complicated. His blood includes the blood of the 3 tribes of elves, the 3 tribes of humans, and the blood of the Mare. From the Silmarillion to the Hobbit and finally to the Lord of the Rings, it is difficult to find a character with more blood than him in the Tolkien universe. In the original work, he is described as strong as a warrior, resourceful as a wizard, and the holder of the 3 rings of the elves, the Ring of Air, Vaya, and is considered the strongest mixed in Middle-earth. They stopped when they were about to approach the Misty Mountains, and Li Zhoguang launched a circle attack with ease. Although the approximate location of Rivendell was marked on the map, the entrance to Rivendell has always been hidden, and it is indeed difficult to find without a guide. So, I don't go to the mountain, let the mountain come to me. Sure enough, the crowd didn't wait for long in the place, and they heard a horn and the sound of horse hooves. After a while, a team of elven knights wearing silver armor and riding white horses surrounded everyone. Li Zhoguang stopped the others from attacking. Seeing that Li Zhoguang and his men did not seem to be hostile, the elven knights did not attack. The leading knight rode forward and came to Li Zhoguang. He glanced at Li Zhoguang, then at Ariana, and said, "Alas or. Ni Tyravantel ar very Uventel I Valatilyana nu Vilya. Mansirig." Li Zhoguang raised his head and asked the leading elf, "We don't understand the elven language. Can you speak the common language?" The leading elf was a little surprised, but still asked in the elven language, "Did you grow up in the outside world? How come you don't even know Sindarin? And, your ears are really..." Ariana is an elf, but her ears are much longer than those of the elves in this world, but not as exaggerated as those of the elves in Azeroth. Li Zhoguang explained, "She is an elf from other places, so she is a little different from the elves in Middle-earth. What about you? Your ears are like those of humans." Li Zhoguang was surprised and said, "I am a human." Then during the conversation between the two, Li Zhoguang realized that his facial lines and skin were too soft and fair compared to the humans here, and most importantly, he had no beard on his face. Because the humans here don't have the habit of shaving, at most they just trim it, so when the elf first saw him, he thought Li Zhoguang was a half-elf. As for Ariana, let alone, with her extremely beautiful appearance and long platinum hair, except for her slightly dark skin, she simply meets all the stereotypes of the outside world about elves. But what the elf didn't say was that he just mistook Xiang Fasai for a tall dwarf, because his beard was too lush and his height was much shorter than the humans here. Just now he was still wondering how a dwarf could be so friendly to an elf. Unexpectedly, it was a big mistake. The leading elf introduced himself. I am Linder under King Elrond. May I ask who you are? Li Zhoguang introduced everyone's names and said, we are all from the outside world and we want to see King Elrond for something. What about the magic just now? Li Zhoguang stretched out a finger, and a red flame ignited on the finger. The surrounding elves sensed the destruction and violence contained in the flame, and they all became nervous. Some elves even put their hands on the hilt of the sword. Relax, why are you so serious? Li Zhoguang reassured, swords are not divided into good and evil. It depends on the person holding the sword. Moreover, even the ring of qi in King Elrond's hand is not Caleb's. Was Linbo based on the knowledge left by Sauron? But this power. Li Zhoguang continued, I know you, Linder, King Elrond's right-hand man, you should have experienced a lot with King Elrond. In your long years, you have seen such power in Middle-earth. Doing evil. Following Li Zhuguang's words, he spread his hands and shaped the crimson magic power into a blooming red lotus. You see, this power is just a little violent, but it is not evil. As long as it is used a little, it can still be very powerful. Convenient. Although there are dragons and balrogs in this world, you have to admit that fire is still very useful, right? Lindile thought for a while and saw that Li Zhoguang and his party were only 5 people, so he said, I will take you to see King Along. King Along will decide everything. Li Zhoguang readily agreed and led the others to follow Linder. When they reached a rock wall, they walked around the rock wall and saw an extremely narrow rift that could only be passed by one person if riding a horse. This reminded Li Zhoguang of the beginning is extremely narrow, but the talent is broad. Rivendell in the original book is also a sanctuary established by Elrond, known as the home of all kind creatures east of the sea. And I don't know if Tolkien referred to the Peach Blossom Spring when he wrote Rivendell. Of course, many fans of the original novel prefer to call it the first nursing home in Middle-earth. After entering Elrond, Li Zhoguang met King Elrond in the council hall as he wished. Elrond first welcomed them, Gi Nathlof Hai. Then, he looked at Li Zhoguang and said doubtfully, you are very special. Since the first era, there has not been such a special visitor in Middle-earth. Li Zhoguang nodded politely, we also feel presumptuous about this unexpected visit, but we are grateful to the great god Elevator for his tolerance in allowing us to walk on the land of Middle-earth. We came here to find a lost artifact. Elrond asked, what kind of artifact is it? Li Zhoguang asked Lindile to borrow the painting tools and explained, this artifact is not available here. Please allow me to draw it. As he spoke, Li Zhoguang used a painting tool close to charcoal to outline the appearance of the carriage with a few strokes. This is a wooden box with doors and windows, like a small house. It may be visible directly, or it may hide its shape and require a closer look to see it. The most important thing we came here this time was to make a deal with King Elrond. King Elrond easily guessed his intention. Do you want Rivendell to help you find this item? Li Zhoguang nodded, yes, for this, I am willing to provide information about the Supreme Lord of the Rings. King Elrond was horrified when he heard the name of the One Ring. P.S. I see that many people are still struggling with the language issue, so I'll explain it here. It's a movie, not a novel. The lingua franca in the movie is English. Even though he was writing novels, Tolkien created a lot of languages when writing novels. Every time he wrote about a certain language somewhere, he would write down the words of that language, whether it was the runes of St. Aaron or still the Tengway letters of Black language. But every time he mentioned where Westerly, the lingua franca of Middle-earth, was written, he wrote in English. If I heard correctly, you are talking about the Lord of the Rings. Elrond confirmed again. Li Zhoguang said confidently, yes, it is the Supreme Lord of the Rings forged by Sauron. As far as I know, although Sauron did not participate in the forging process of the 3 elven rings, the craftsmanship used is still the same as other power rings. In other words, even if the 3 elven rings will not corrupt people's hearts, they will still be controlled by the supreme magic ring. If you can destroy the Supreme Lord of the Rings, you will not only be able to banish Sauron from Middle-earth, but you will also have no worries when using the 3 elven rings in the future. King Elrond frowned, the Supreme Lord of the Rings has disappeared for so many years, and there is not even a trace of it. How can I trust you? My trip is to slay the dragon in Lonely Mountain. It won't be long before you hear rumors that I have occupied Lonely Mountain. By then, the Supreme Lord of the Rings should have been in my hands, and you can send someone to get it. By the way, the Supreme Lord of the Rings has extremely powerful corruption capabilities. It is recommended that you find an upright and kind-hearted hobbit. Their resistance to the Supreme Lord of the Rings is beyond imagination. King Elrond was dubious. It seems that you are very confident that you can obtain the Supreme Lord of the Rings, and you mentioned slaying the dragon. Li Zhoguang spread his hands and said with a smile, yes, the main purpose of our trip is to slay the dragon. Looking for the Supreme Lord of the Rings is just a side trip. If I don't get the Supreme Lord of the Rings, you will just go there in vain. Just treat it as an outing and a drop visit. Come to Thranduil. King Elrond nodded, if I really hear that you have eliminated Smaug, even if you do not find the Supreme Lord of the Rings, I will mobilize people to help you find what you want. It seems that evil dragons are not very popular no matter where they are. The reason why all parties have not made up their minds to slay the dragon is simply because they are worried about casualties. Just like Li Zhoguang believes, people only take their own affairs to heart. Didn't you see that the Durin dwarves, even if there were only 12 of them, would try their best to reach the Lonely Mountain? The two came to an agreement, and Elrond ordered a banquet. Soon all kinds of fruits and vegetables were brought to the table. Of course, these were not appetizers, but fruits and vegetables were the main meals for the elves. Everyone eats meat porridge for breakfast, so even if they eat vegetarian food for lunch, it is not unacceptable. Moreover, the elves' banquet was played by musicians. This is the key point for Li Zhoguang. He is worthy of being an artistic race. This song is really good. This banquet was a great time for both the guests and the host, especially Ariana, who enjoyed the meal the most. Her voracious eating behavior attracted frequent glances from the elves. The plate in front of her was emptied several times, and the waiters at the banquet had to keep adding more dishes to her. In her previous life, even in her wildest dreams, she never dared to expect that there would be so many vegetables and fruits for her to enjoy. Li Zhoguang awkwardly explained to King Along, her hometown was hit by a disaster, and there were not many plants left. So the elves there could only eat a very small amount of meat, fruits, and vegetables. What's more? No need to think about it. Li Zhoguang's explanation aroused the sympathy of King Along. He had never thought that a tribe of his own people would be in such dire straits. He asked the waiter to bring more fruits and vegetables. After a while, a messenger came to Elrond and whispered to him. Elrond nodded slightly towards Li Zhoguang. It seems that we have an important guest who is going to join this banquet. Li Zhoguang was a little surprised. According to the timeline, Princess Arwen, Elrond's daughter, should come back 10 years later. How could any important person visit Rivendell now? Suddenly, everyone present heard a noise. Li Zhoguang looked in the direction of the noise and saw a tall, grey figure. It was Gandalf, and with him were the dwarves headed by Thorin and Bilbo Baggins. In the eyes of King Elrond, only Gandalf is considered a guest, and the rest are just additions. But this is also because King Elrond is broad-minded and good-tempered. If it were King Seir, Gandalf would dare to lead a group of dwarves into the dark forest, let alone the dwarves, even he himself would not be able to get to the table. Li Zhoguang saw Gandalf looking towards him and waved to him, Forrest Gump, we meet again. Forrest Gump. King Elrond looked sideways and called him so casually. He had never heard Gandalf say that he had such a friend. Gandalf was also good-tempered and nodded to Li Zhoguang. Bilbo also saw Li Zhoguang and said to the dwarves around him, he is the one who paid for your meal. When the other dwarves heard this, they immediately glared at Li Zhoguang and shouted that they were about to rush over to give Li Zhoguang a look. As the leader, Thorin was relatively able to keep his composure, suppressed the anger of the other dwarves, and stepped forward. Are you the one who wants to seize the treasure of the Lonely Mountain? When did the elves become so shameless? Thorin then pointed at the bear to get rich. Which tribe are you from? You have actually fallen to the point of being in company with the elves. Li Zhoguang explained, I am a human, and he is not a dwarf. What? But his beard. No, why don't you have a beard? Thorin didn't believe it. Li Zhoguang rolled his eyes, in my hometown, the most basic social etiquette is to shave yourself cleanly. Unless you trim your beard carefully. I don't agree with the first half, but I agree with the second half. Let's go back to the question just now, that is, do you want to steal the treasure of Lonely Mountain? No, I don't plan to steal. I plan to kill Smog and then rob openly. Ha ha ha. Hearing Li Zhuguang's words, all the dwarves laughed. They were laughing at Li Zhuguang's fantasy. You should know that the gate of Erebor, the capital of the dwarves in Lonely Mountain, has been closed for a long time. They will only embark on the journey if they have the key to the secret passage. If they don't have this condition, they will never dream of returning to Lonely Mountain. Thorin was also amused by Li Zhuguang. Then I wish you a successful start. But Gandalf couldn't laugh. As a Maya, he is much more sensitive than the dwarves. He can feel the power in these people. Especially the man who calls himself Li Zhuguang and the strong man who looks like a dwarf, the power flowing in their bodies is surging and violent. Gandalf suggested, why don't you join our team and we divide the treasure equally? Gandalf's proposal was opposed by both sides. The reason why Thorin let Baggins join the team was because they really needed a thief, and a hobbit thief. Because this is the only race that Smog has never seen. Others such as dwarves, elves, and humans will be smelled by Smog as long as they enter the Lonely Mountain. Although this trip is nominally to take back the Lonely Mountain, the actual focus is to steal the Arkenstone. After all, only with the Arkenstone can the dwarves be commanded. With the support of the dwarf tribes, an army can be formed to retake the Lonely Mountain. A hobbit thief endorsed by Gandalf is the limit that Thorin can accept. Thorin doesn't want other irrelevant people to share a piece of the pie. As for Li Zhuguang, he thought very simply. It would cost a huge amount of money to mobilize the forces of the entire continent to help find the carriage. In this regard, he can only say that I want them all. At this moment, both Li Zhuguang and Thorin thought that the other party was not qualified to compete with them, so the banquet could go on smoothly. Until dwarves and elves belong to two extremes, which means that the elves think that the elegant banquet is boring in the eyes of dwarves, so the dwarves decided to add some programs. It's nothing, just singing. In fact, Li Zhuguang also appreciates the musical talent of the dwarves. At least he likes to listen to the song of the Lonely Mountain. However, while singing, the dwarves began to jump on the table and throw food. Others were fine. Ariana raised her head and saw the fruits and vegetables flying in the sky, and then looked at the dwarves standing on the table. Her eyes were red, and a terrible sense of oppression burst out from her body. In an instant, she turned into a residual shadow and crossed the table and went straight to the dwarves. Li Zhuguang reacted only when he saw her rushing out, and could only shout, "Don't kill people!" Perhaps she heard what Li Zhuguang said, or perhaps Ariana was not a bloodthirsty elf, so she did not use the bow on her back or draw the dagger at her waist. She only used her fists to knock the dwarves away one by one. The dwarves were tough, and even though they were knocked away by Ariana, they just rubbed the parts of their fists and got up, charging towards Ariana with their weapons. But it was useless. Except for the beast-biting sword in Thorin's hand, which was chopped away by Ariana's palm, the daggers in the hands of the other dwarves were all chopped into two by Ariana's hand knife. Even if they were holding a mattock or a warhammer, she pulled out the hammerhead and hoe-head with one grab. Anyone who came with a weapon was hit by Ariana's second punch, which was much heavier than the first punch. The dwarves who were blown away this time could not get up, and could only lie on the ground and groan. Gandalf saw that it was not a big deal, so he stood up and tried to stop Ariana. Ariana felt someone approaching, so she punched him subconsciously. Gandalf raised his staff to block, but Ariana's punch did not hit his staff. Because she was rolled back by Li Zhuguang's crimson touch. This old man is not good at fighting, my friend. The manager of the band kindly let our wild team into their rehearsal room to practice together, which is already very righteous. You said that you beat up their popular bassist while practicing, what's the big deal? Isn't this a slap in the face? Li Zhuguang tried his best to comfort Ariana. The old man came here under the order of the creator god of this world. You can beat me to vent your anger, but don't hit him. Li Zhuguang knew very well that among the 5 Maya who came to the world as wizards, only Gandalf was ordered by Elevator, and the other 4 came here on their own. Especially Saruman, he is different from the other 3 Mayor who came with enthusiasm and requested their own orders. He thinks he is older and stronger than Gandalf, so he is very dissatisfied with Elevator's appointment of Gandalf and ignoring him. His coming is not for the sentient beings in Middle-earth, but to prove that he is stronger and better than Gandalf, and he is the best child of the Father God. Well, to sum up, it is Shen Gongbao and Zhangxia. So Li Zhuguang believes that Gandalf is the most special in this Middle-earth. Beating Smog, beating Sauron, or even beating Saruman, these are not a problem, but if this old man is beaten, Li Zhoguang and others are not elevator's creations, he dare not bet on what will happen. Hearing Li Zhuguang's words, Ariana also calmed down. Although she was furious at the waste of food, she still knew the importance. Then he said to Li Zhoguang, "Let me go, I won't do it." Li Zhoguang let him go after hearing that, but he still didn't disperse the crimson touch, just in case. Aliana asked the waiter next to her for a large tray, took the tray, squatted on the ground, and picked up the food on the ground bit by bit. The elves present had heard Li Zhoguang introduce the situation of Aliana's hometown before, and their faces were very heavy at this time. Xiang Fasai sighed, waved his hand, and the fruits and vegetables on the ground were swept up by the evil wind and flew into Aliana's tray. Aliana smiled happily at Xiang Fasai and returned to her seat with the tray. Elrond was deeply touched by this scene. Although he didn't show it on his face, he had already begun to roar in his heart. Tomorrow. Start building ships tomorrow. We must rescue these people who are living in dire straits. Rivendell is so big that there is still room for one more tribe. Seeing Ariana's behavior, Gandalf was also confused and cast a puzzled look at Li Zhoguang. Li Zhoguang sighed and repeated what he had explained to Elrond before to Gandalf. Gandalf knew that these people came from outside the world of Arda, but as kind as he was, he also sighed, "I didn't expect there was such a place." The dissatisfaction with Ariana's beating of the dwarves in his heart also dissipated. Even he had to admit that Ariana's behavior was excusable. At this time, the guards of Rivendell hurried over. They looked around and saw only the dwarves lying on the ground groaning. Looking at the guests, there was no damage at all. The leader of the guards breathed a sigh of relief. The problem was not serious. Elrond only ordered the guards to take the dwarves away for treatment, and did not blame Ariana for her actions. The banquet seemed to have returned to the beginning, except that there was an extra grey-robed wizard. However, after Ariana returned to her seat, she took out a piece of clean fine linen, wiped the fruits and vegetables picked up from the tray, and put them directly into her mouth. Every time she wiped one, Elrond's brow twitched. He really wanted to replace some clean fruits and vegetables for this poor elf, but he really couldn't bear to let people take those fruits and vegetables away from her. He simply turned his head away and didn't look at her. Tonight. Start building the ship tonight. Since the agreement has been reached, Li Zhoguang originally wanted to leave the next day, but because of Ariana, all the elves in Rivendell tried their best to keep them for a while. After a round of bargaining, Elrond agreed to Li Zhoguang's request to stay for only another week. On Elrond's side, the keel of the ship was almost formed, and he learned from Gandalf that the elves who suffered so much were not overseas elves, but elves outside this world. After hearing the bad news, Elrond sighed heavily. If it was an overseas elf, it would be easy to deal with. Their elves have very good navigation technology. But if it was not in this world, he really had no choice. Elrond did not sleep well for several days in a row. As for the shipbuilding plan, it was still carried out as usual. Because Middle-earth was not peaceful, he had long planned to move all the residents of Rivendell to the Holy Land of Valinor. During this week, Li Zhoguang and his friends also enjoyed a rare period of relaxation. Rivendell lived up to the reputation of the first nursing home in Middle-earth. It had beautiful scenery, pleasant climate, and the residents were also very enthusiastic. Even if there were occasional orcs in the outside world, they would be quickly dealt with by the elven knights. It was rare to have free time, so Qin Daniu took this opportunity to teach Li Zhoguang the full set of Barbarian Bull Fist. Because he had learned the foundation of Beast-shaped Fist, Li Zhoguang learned Barbarian Bull Fist very quickly and mastered it all in 2 days. The dwarves had good recovery ability, and Ariana didn't kill them, so they were able to jump again in a few days. The first thing they did after they recovered was to come to Ariana to fight. Although they felt a little guilty when they heard other elves talking about Ariana while they were recovering from their injuries. But being defeated by an elf, especially a female elf, was still intolerable. Another round of fights ended in failure. They couldn't win even with weapons, and fighting with bare hands was a dead end. Ariana beat them like playing whack-a-mole. Not only did they lose the fight, but even their most proud skills were humiliated in front of Ariana. One day, the two sides who had just finished fighting sat together to drink water and rest. Ariana asked in confusion, "Why do people here use such inferior weapons?" A translator, she said, "Your weapons break at the touch. Are you really dwarves?" Of course, the dwarves were not convinced, and they drew their weapons and started to shout. Li Zhoguang pulled out the dagger from Ariana's waist and threw it to them. When the dwarves saw Ariana's dagger, they all laughed. The dagger was very crudely made. Not to mention the craftsmanship of the elves and dwarves, its rough forging style directly penetrated the human craftsmanship and caught up with the orcs' craftsmanship. But after using their own forged swords to hit it, the dwarves could no longer laugh. Shouldn't it be? No reason? Only the beast bite sword in Thorin's hand only had a gap, and did not break with a sound. But this did not make the dwarves regain their confidence, because the beast bite sword was a product of the elves in the first age, not forged by the dwarves. Kilai, the best archer among the dwarves, saw the bow on Ariana's back and asked to see the bow. Ariana handed the bow to him. The bow also continued the style of the dagger, and it was so rough that it was unbearable to look at, like a piece of dead branches that was bent and tied with a rope. The depth of its roughness was estimated to make even the orcs shake their heads when they saw it. But even with this bow, Kilai tried his best and only managed to pull it a little. The other dwarves also tried, but they were no better than Kilai. Aliana laughed, "You people here are really weak." Translation, she said, "You are like women." The dwarves present could clearly recall everything that happened on this day until the end of their lives. Occasionally, they would dream about it and cry out in their dreams. Because on this day, they endured the worst and most serious ultimate insult that a Middle-earth dwarf could encounter. Being called a woman by a female elf. And they couldn't refute it. A week later, Li Zhoguang and his group bid farewell to Elrond and prepared to embark on their journey again. Gandalf and his group decided to stay for a while longer. Li Zhoguang knew that it was because Gandalf had not yet persuaded Thorin to let Elrond help them translate the secret language of the secret passage map. Without knowing the secret language of the secret passage, even with the key, they didn't know how to open it. In addition, in order to stagger with Li Zhoguang and his group, Gandalf was afraid that there would be another conflict if the two parties set out at the same time. Before leaving, Elrond prepared a large bag of fruits and vegetables and gave it to Ariana. Originally, he saw that the bow and arrows used by Ariana were very rough, and they didn't look like what an elf should use, so he offered to give her a bow and arrow. However, when Ariana easily broke Elrond's fifth collection, Elrond gave up this idea. Not only the bow, but even the arrows sent out, Ariana couldn't use it. Her crude longbow was extremely powerful. When Rivendell's standard arrows were placed on the bowstring, every time they were released, the arrows would explode directly under the huge force and could not be shot at all. Elrond gave up the support of weapons and simply gave each person a small bag of lembas. Lembas is a kind of crispy and thin biscuits made by elves. As long as it is completely wrapped in magnolia leaves, it can be preserved for a long time. Eating one piece is enough to support a whole day's trek. In the original book, when the Fellowship of the Ring visited Lothlorien, the elves there prepared this for the Fellowship of the Ring. However, this thing is not popular to eat too much, it can only be used as an emergency, because eating lembas will make non-elven mortals tired of their limited lives and yearn for the immortal land Aman. Before the departure, Li Zhoguang asked Elrond to send a letter to Thranduil to inform him of the visit that Li Zhoguang and his party would make. Otherwise, with the Mirkwood covering an area larger than the Kingdom of Rohan, if the elves do not take the initiative to come forward, it will take Li Zhoguang forever to find it. Before leaving, Li Zhoguang specifically asked about the route through the Misty Mountains and the location of the orc settlements living in the Misty Mountains. The elves who came to see him off kindly gave Li Zhoguang a map of the Misty Mountains, and specially marked the location of the orc settlements, and reminded them to take a detour. It's not that they look down on Li Zhoguang and his team's fighting ability, but there are too many orcs in the Misty Mountains, so don't poke a hornet's nest that can be avoided. The road in the Misty Mountains is complicated, so Li Zhoguang and his team left their horses in Rivendell and traveled on their legs. However, everyone has special skills, and even if they run wildly on steep cliffs, they are not much slower than riding horses on flat ground. It's just that Wei Chongfeng is still a little short of the heat, and sometimes he needs Li Zhoguang to lend him the steel armor. After running for a while, Li Zhoguang signaled everyone to stop. He took out the map and looked at it. Yes, it's near here. Li Zhoguang turned around and told everyone, "We will find a ring in a while. This ring will bewitch people, so if you feel something is wrong, use Ju to calm your mind." "Aliana, you don't know how to read. I'll ask you to stay away in a while, so stay away." Everyone nodded. Another useful circle impact. After a few times, Li Zhoguang found a place with a lot of life energy feedback. Anyway, this time he was not going to visit, so there was no need to be polite. Li Zhoguang directly used the crimson touch to open the way, chiseling the rock wall that blocked the road layer by layer, and soon saw the fire. The orcs around saw the rock wall break open and someone got in. Even with their poor IQ, they knew that the newcomer was not friendly, and they shouted immediately. The orcs here hollowed out a mountain, built huts on the rock wall, and connected them with a simple wooden bridge in the middle. So this settlement looks big, but there is actually not much place to stay. Li Zhoguang released his flying sword, flying along the wooden plank road and suspension bridge, piercing through the chests of all who were in his way. Few who reacted quickly and could jump out, most of them fell into the deep valley and died. Most of the orcs here are snaga, a kind of half-orcs who are short and wretched, and lack courage. Their racial names are even used as insults by other orcs. So when Li Zhoguang slaughtered hundreds of orcs in an extremely efficient way, other orcs dared not come forward. Li Zhoguang shouted, "Come here, someone who can speak the common language." There were orcs who knew the common language around, looking around vigilantly, but no one stood up. Li Zhoguang used his flying sword, pulling out a red light, and another 7 or 8 half-orcs lost their heads. "If no one comes out, I will kill 10 every time I breathe until all the orcs here are killed." Instantly, a fierce quarrel broke out in the group of orcs. After a while, 3 orcs were pushed and thrown out by their own people and fell at Li Zhoguang's feet. The 3 orcs raised their heads tremblingly and said, "Which? Master Wizard? Take me to see your king." The 3 orcs looked at each other and began to shake their heads. Li Zhoguang killed one with a flying sword and said to the other 2, "Take me to see your king." The remaining 2 hesitated for a moment, and during this hesitation, Li Zhoguang killed another one. Before he said it for the 3rd time, the last orc stood up and led the way, "Master Wizard, follow me." The surrounding orcs saw that there was a traitor among them, and they all glared at the guide and cursed in the orc dialect. Li Zhoguang directly killed several of those who cursed the loudest, and the surroundings immediately became much quieter. Soon, under the guidance of the guide, Li Zhoguang and his companions saw a mountain of meat. As a Snaga orc, it was a wonder that he could grow up like this. The orc king certainly knew what was happening ahead, but he was too fat to run at all. No matter how he shouted, no orc was willing to stand in front of him. Soon Li Zhoguang came in front of him, and the orc king lowered his fat head helplessly. "What do you want, wizard?" Li Zhoguang asked directly, "In your kingdom, is there any underground water source where fish can be caught?" The orc king didn't know what Li Zhoguang meant by asking this question, but he still shouted something hurriedly to his side. After a while, an orc came out reluctantly and muttered orc language to the orc king. Li Zhoguang found that the orc who came out was holding a short-handled harpoon in his hand. It seemed that he was a fisherman in this orc kingdom. After a while, the orc king said to Li Zhoguang, "In the lowest level of my kingdom, there are 3 underground lakes where fish can be replenished. Then ask him if there are any underground lakes where orcs often go missing." After asking the fisherman, the orc king translated honestly. He said that in the lake at the bottom, orcs occasionally go missing. They all think there is a big fish in that lake, which will swallow them up when the orcs drink water by the lake. "Where is that lake?" "It's just." Li Zhoguang noted the location and said to the orc king, "Thank you very much for your help. It's my duty to serve you." Before the orc king could finish speaking, Li Zhoguang cut off his head. Then, he picked up the crown on the orc king's head with a flying sword and shouted to the orcs around him, "Whoever gets the crown is the new king." As he said that, he threw the crown in the direction of the orcs. Those orcs who could understand the common language immediately rushed up, and other orcs who did not understand the common language followed suit when they saw someone grabbing the crown. Taking advantage of the chaos among the orcs, Li Zhoguang put on his iron armor, rolled up a few people with the crimson touch, and descended to the bottom of the orc kingdom. After descending to the bottom, Li Zhoguang listened to the scolding and roaring coming from above, and nodded with satisfaction. Golem's hearing is very sensitive, but there must be some noise to cover up the tracks of several people. Li Zhoguang told several people to walk lightly and walk to the underground lake in the direction pointed by the former orc king. He took out a cold chicken bought in the Shire from the storage bag and threw it to the lake. Although Golem is a hobbit of the Strong Body tribe, and the Shire is the settlement of the Hairy Foot tribe, I think the food of the hobbits always has something in common. Golem has been away from home for more than 400 years, and he should miss the food of the hobbits. If you enjoy the content of this channel, subscribe, like, and comment, to help this channel to grow.